What's up, guys? Today we are interviewing one of the greatest players of all time, according to himself and also according to other people. Thunder Blunders.
KC, bro, claim me.
Yes,
KC,
one of the greatest players from Gen 5, 6, and 7, and I'm sure 8 in the future. So,
thank you.
yeah, of course. So, can you tell us a little bit about yourself outside of the Pokemon world? ASL, hobbies, social security, things like that.
Okay, I'm a college student. I live in Chicago. The only video game I ever play is Pokemon. I don't really play video games other than that. I like rap music and going to concerts and shit like that. And just, I upload Pokemon, of course. I'm a amazing Pokemon YouTuber as well, alongside BKC, Competitive Titans. And I'm here today to give the exclusive competitive interview. I've never been interviewed like this before, BKC. So,
Really? I found an old Player of the Week interview on Smogan from 2015, and pretty much the whole thing is what shaped you in competitive Pokemon? And you're like, IDM, CTC, Moet, Hugo. And I'm like, well, this is boring. Um,
you already knew all that.
yeah, right? But, it's the scoop, and even Charlie Rose has to start out with the basics, so. What is your favorite Pokemon, not competitive, just design-wise, of all time? So pretty much what I'm saying is if you say Rayquaza or something, then it's not cool.
It's Slowking. That's my favorite one.
Really? Why?
Yeah. I don't know. Slowking has been my favorite for a very, very long time, though. Thundurus was never really like my favorite Pokemon. It was my favorite Pokemon from Gen 5 alongside Hydreigon. But
Right.
it's just a cool Pokemon.
Right.
Slowking is my favorite design-wise. I just think it's hilarious.
Did you
It's
watch?
always funny in the show, too.
Did you watch the second Pokemon movie?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah.
Slowking's in that one, isn't he?
Yeah, he says I could use pants. What a classic.
Slowking also just has really good art. I really like, and like all of the when I look up all of its images and I ever use it in a thumbnail, like it always has something like cool. Like there's always a different Slowking image that's still really good.
It is really nice. I think part of it is also that it's so hard to get because you have to like trade it with the King's Rock or something. And
It's hard to obtain.
yeah, those Pokemon are always so much cooler when you're a kid. Like nowadays, I don't think anything about Steelix because, whatever. But as a kid, I was like, man, I wish I could get a Steelix, but I got to trade it with a Metal Coat or something. And same with like Scizor.
And one of the first teams I ever used in Pokemon, the first team I ever got page one with back on PO 2012 Black White was a Spec Slowking ranked team.
Spec
And,
Slowking.
Yeah, because I told you I love Slowking. And so Valentine and Moet made me a team with Spec Slowking. This is Genesect Black White, Genesect Black White 2 came out. And so it was a rain offense with Spec Slowking. And I got page one. And I was happy because that's like my favorite mon.
So that's like fall of 2012. That's crazy. Or like late summer or something. Man, that's coming up on 7 years ago.
October, November. 7 years now.
How time flies.
7 years. Because I played in the summer of 2012. So basically, been 7 years. That's insane.
Yeah, I often think about the divide between old Smogan, or what I consider to be old Smogan, and new Smogan. So, I mean, there's older Smogan than me for sure, but when I came around in 2010, there were like a bunch of guys who either started during Advanced, like the higher tier players like Huskin and Perfect Luck, and then like the guys who came around during Gen 4. So think about it like this. You know how Lavos came around in Gen 5,
Yeah.
for example, and like Dice and other guys? Well, other guys like that are CTC, of course, the Fire Flames guy. Yeah, so like guys like Heist came around in Gen 4 and Blue Wind and Crack and others. So and those kind of started getting phased out when Black and White 1 finished, and the era of the Gen 5 guys coming in and ruling started in Black and White 2.
Team preview changed it up a little bit, I guess.
Well, it's not even team preview as much
that
as
era more,
right.
because
It did because a lot of the best Gen 4 players going into Gen 5 became some of the best Gen 5 players. Some of them even became better, like they found their calling or something. And I've observed this phenomenon repeat itself throughout every single gen that's come out since I'm old. But you always see that kind of thing. But we can get into that.
You see, what do you mean? I guess we'll get into it.
Think about it like updated Kanto. Kind of. Like he wasn't really a big thing when Gen 6 was the main tier, but after the fact, then he kind of went back a little, Like there's either the guy who goes back to the gen that just finished, like the guys who stuck to Oris when Sun and Moon came around, and then there's the guys who weren't that good during Oris but kind of flourish when Sun and Moon comes around. Examples escape me right now, but if you look into it and look back to that time period, I guarantee you'll find a million of those.
No, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. So you were part of that first wave of Black and White 2 players, even though you weren't as prominent as some of your louder-mouthed compatriots.
True.
Cough
I've been on
the
Smogon.
the base lord.
Base Lord.
Base Lord.
Is the reason we all came to Smogon too. That's true. You could blame him for the whole.
Oh yeah, no, but people don't worry. People do. People complain, blame him for. I mean, I'm not saying Old Smogan was a sainthood or anything. I mean, it was pretty wild. But young Blair, I found something the other day. He referred to himself as Bung Yeast Lord, and I couldn't stop laughing at it. That was so. That was. That was so stupid. I was in the shower the other day, and I wasn't thinking about Pokemon at all, and then, for some reason, CTC saying, "Protect Lil Hugo" popped in my head, and I almost slipped in the shower. It was so stupid. But yeah.
Iconic, bro.
Yeah, but CTC and company, Valentine, they really ushered in the era that you see now where, you hack someone and you just say easy.
Talking shit. They really cultivated the shit talk. Like, too easy.
Like before that, here's an example. In the last Black and White 1 World Cup, which was right before Black and White 2 came out, then Lavos also part of that culture, if not part of that specific gang. Like he started like talking shit to everyone after one win, and everyone hated him. Whereas nowadays, if that happened, then he would be supported. Lavos is one of Smogan's most refined users, of course, but
You're right. You're right. Back then, everyone was nice. Even me, man. I was always nice. I didn't start being an ass until like last.
No, that's because it's it used to be that the young guys would kind of be polite, like, "Hey, Mr. Great Player, sir, sorry I hacked you." Maybe not like that, but you get the idea.
I know. It was just like a respect. Like there was no
Yeah.
need to do anything crazy. There was no need to make a scene.
Yeah.
And so no one.
Yeah, and then, when it becomes popular, because you might remember the Shofu crew, that was a big part, that really expanded in Black and White 1 in 2011. That kind of thing inspired the PO guys, and when they came over to Smogan, then it came, not even full circle, but it just extended, and it,
That is very
yeah,
true.
yeah. It even extends, like, to the competitive scene, because,
Man, you really did come from Shofu.
yeah, I was in that group, Roscoe, PK.
We used to play back in like 2012, 2011.
Oh, it was crazy, but it extends to stuff like how on YouTube stall is the worst,
Yeah.
and I originally left YouTube to play on Smogan because there they didn't put up with nonsense like that. Back when YouTubers were saying no Scar and Bliss, and Smogan was like, I don't care what you use, I'm still gonna beat you.
Yeah, you used the Wi-Fi battle, right?
Yep, I did. That's how I got started. And 10 years ago. But then when the Shofu crew came over, then it became like cool to hate on Stall again and stuff like that.
Yeah, it became cool to just flex. Like,
Yeah.
Darmanitan, it became cool to flex.
Oh, Darmanitan. I wish he was good. I was thinking about using him recently, but he's bad.
He's bad, dude.
He's so bad.
He's bad, but one day he'll be back.
All right, so I think we've lived in the past. You got to strike a balance between reminiscing on the past and living in the present.
It's not like old man.
Yeah, it's okay. Nothing wrong with that as long as that's not your entire identity. Because, I mean, if you never enjoy the past, then, that's fleeting.
We gotta reflect every now and then.
Of course. Well, we're going to reflect a little more because the next question is, how did you come up with your wonderful username, ThunderBlunder777?
I'll tell you right now, BKC. So, the time period is 2012. I have just, got a shiny Thundurus. So, back in the day, I used to really like shiny Pokemon. So, this was like 2011. I used to go on those, I had my DS. I used to be on those fucking Pokemon forums and shit, trading with people. I used to scam people. I used to do what I want. I was bad. So, but I was trading for shiny Pokemon, and I got a Thundurus. And I was like, man, what should I nickname this? So this one dude was like, just name it Thunder Blunder. And I'm like, ooh, that is fire. And then I had already been on PO. I actually had PO installed at the end of 2011, but I never really played it. and the few times I did, I played like Dream World or Ladder.
Mm. Mm.
But I forgot what alt I used. But for some reason, I just started using the alt Thunder Blunder because I thought that shit was so funny. And then that's when I made my username on PO. And then I yeah, that's when I made my username on PO. And then that's around the same time I made my YouTube channel,
It's
which
funny
was
how
November
the
2011.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's funny how the usernames we make when we're like 14 just kind of follow us around, and that's coming from a guy.
I never felt like changing it either. And I
Yeah,
didn't
no, I mean you can at
know
some
I
point,
had
you
it.
know.
Yeah, I knew it
Uh,
was so dumb.
Like even if it's dumb, then it just kind of becomes your thing. And this is coming from a guy who came up with the name Blazin' Kickin' Chicken when he
Yeah,
was
Blaze the Kitchen
when I
is
was
amazing.
12 years old. Yikes. All right. So we've already gotten into the well. How and when did you get into competitive Pokemon? Like, did you break your leg and were
So
googling things?
okay, so I found out what Pokemon was from seeing. Well, I knew what it was because I played Sapphire, but like it was my friends, so I wasn't really ever into the shit. But then,
Really?
yeah, I never really had like an interest. I never really watched it as a kid.
That's
I just
crazy
found
because
Sapphire from a friend and I liked it.
Tasung claims to have never played the Pokemon games as a kid.
Yeah,
Eh,
I've only played Sapphire. I've only played Gen 3 through 5.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've only played Gen 3 through 5 in game because I never really watched it. I was never really into it. Like I didn't like it like that. But one day I was hanging out with some friend and he had Platinum or whatever on
Yeah.
his DS, and that was really fun. Like just watching it, I was like, this game is sick.
Wonderful
So
game. Yeah.
that Christmas I got Platinum. I beat it. Blah 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 blah. Then I was trading for shinies, doing my scamming and all that shit. But then my cousin stole my game one day,
Dude.
and he went to Canada. He went to Canada. I couldn't even beat his ass up. He stole my game. And then
That's
I
like
was
the
a little
ultimate
kid.
heist.
I know. So that's how I got back. I stole all those mods, and he stole my game. So
Oh, that's
year
horrible.
later, Black White One comes out, and I'm playing on that. You know that online, you can do that GTS battling or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I used to do that with triple battles and
Those were
and,
so
and,
dumb.
and then 1v1 where you only pick three.
Right,
And
right.
I was trading around, and then one day someone gave me a hack Pokemon, and it was a Giratina, shiny Giratina
Mm.
with 252 EVs, and I was like, why are his stats so good? I googled it, found out what EVs were. I was like, huh. So then I sort of started to understand like how you can optimize a Pokemon,
Mm-hmm.
and then someone else taught me how to Pokeset, and then you could send the Pokemon through the GTS into your game. So then I never needed to trade or anything anymore because I figured out how to hack my own Pokemon. So I started figuring out how to make these Pokemon with the legal EV spreads and then bringing them on that battle online thing. Eventually found Smogon analysis, blah 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 blah. Started using Pokemon like Blaziken and shit like that on the online. Then I started Wi-Fi battling. Met the guys on PO, and then came to Smogon in 2014.
That is a pretty hardcore origin story.
Right? Yeah, I remember that shit pretty well.
I'm glad someone else appreciates shiny Pokemon. Whenever I use like shiny Heatran or something, then people always make fun of me, and I just
Dude, they don't know. I
it's
remember when you gave me the team for Ojama and you had every mon shiny.
oh
I was
yeah,
like,
yeah.
this is gonna do it. This is gonna do it. You had every mon shiny.
I'm a big
I was
like
I'm not
sometimes
changing any of them.
sometimes even if the Pokemon looks worse, I just have to do it.
No, dude.
You know?
Sometimes it looks amazing. Like shiny.
No, I agree. Sometimes like I will always use a shiny Flygon. I think it's
Yeah,
just
bro.
better. But sometimes even if it looks stupider, like I think Rotom Wash shiny looks kind of stupid. But if the rest of the team is, then
Cause
what
like,
the hell?
okay, I found the team you gave me. That mixed chomp team. Every shiny looks sick. T-Tar.
Garchomp doesn't. Garchomp, I don't know. Garchomp doesn't look.
The same thing.
Yeah,
Looks
yeah,
like to me.
yeah.
I love it, bro.
I like it as an aesthetic when all of them are shiny. I really hated when they started doing that shit where, like, you can't use shiny Jirachi, Celebi, and like Keldeo anymore.
Yeah,
It's like, oh, come
part of the
on,
game.
you're ruining my aesthetic.
My aesthetic.
Yeah, right.
My vibe, bro. My vibe.
Exactly. All right, so. Going back to the shinies thing, I promise we won't stay here for 3 hours talking about shinies, although we could. But you know how when you were a kid, well, actually, no, you don't know this because you didn't play Gen 2. But in Gen 2, there's a shiny Gyarados, and
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
I've heard of it. Yeah.
yeah, and it's pretty much the coolest thing ever. And even though Gyarados really sucks in Gen 2, everyone puts it on their team. I mean, because it's convenient, but also because it's a shiny Gyarados.
Flex.
Yeah, like, do you remember the first shiny Pokemon you ran into as a kid?
I want to say it was Electivire. Like I didn't run into it. It was
Right.
another kid. But my
Well, I mean, like, which one did you run into in the wild and, had that.
Bro, I don't think I ever ran into one in the wild.
What?
I don't think
That's
I ever got blessed like that.
that's horrible.
I'm serious. Yeah.
I mean, this is what you get for not playing as much as a kid, but
I ran
still.
into a shiny once ever, and it was in Gen 6, and I didn't care at that point.
Right,
I was
right,
trying to beat the game for YouTube.
right.
It was sad, but no, I never ran into a shiny.
That's
Actually,
depressing. How did you
yeah,
discover
I
them
know.
then?
What do you mean, bro? You just Google Pokemon. Like I looked them up on Bulbapedia, then you see the alternate skin.
Oh, okay.
Everyone knew Black
Ugh.
Charizard and all those shits.
This is sad. This is like a kid who never
I
experienced
know.
Christmas.
I never got what I so desperately wanted. I just had to keep trading for them.
One day your kids are gonna be playing Pokemon and they're gonna run into a shiny. Dad, look, a shiny, and you're just gonna be like,
You guys got my
right. It's like, Mom, why does Dad hate me so much? I can't explain, honey. All right, moving into more serious territory. What shaped you as a player? I mean, I know we've gone over your hardcore origin story, but like, let's get past the basics and more into like. So I have like here tours, people, battles, ladder experiences, etc. And give a rough approximation of when. If you want to make it chronological, that would probably make it easier too, because in 2015, I met Hugo. I know it's not true. And then in 2013, I met Dice, and because that just doesn't kind of work that way. Hugo messaged me today. He told me to watch some comedian. It's destiny.
He's been around. That's good. I'm glad you heard from him.
Yeah. Anyway, what shaped you?
Okay, so 2014 is when I started, right?
Yeah.
So I played UU and SPL from my boy Hugo and Mark.
Oh wait, I'll tell the people about this. Blunder was picked up by the Wolfpack for 3K, and it's okay because Spider-Man had humble origins too.
True.
So
You gotta get sauced up, bro.
exactly. But so he got bought for 3K by Hugo, who was like, "Oh man, what a steal! This is my UU player." And he, what was the record? 04?
Yeah.
Yeah, 04. And the notable thing about the 04 was that like 3 guys brought Bronzong, and he just could not kill it, and it became like a meme.
It was bad. It was bad. And I got what's it called? And I only lost to all the lames. I lost to Coco Loco, Destiny Unknown. Oh my god, bro. I lost to all the haters, bro. So it was tough. It was tough.
Wasn't Coco like part of the crew?
No, he was, but it was annoying.
Right. No,
Yeah.
No, I get it. Yeah.
Coco Loco's hilarious. But
Oh.
yeah, so I lost all those games. I did win a game at SPL. I beat Shake It Up. So that was cool.
All right. Was that the one where you used like the stupid mixed tier Tyrantrum or something?
We played RU and we had like we played XYRU
Oh,
and it was just like an offense. It was like a 15 turn game. Like, it was
right. So your final record was what? 1-4.
like 1-4, 1-4.
All right.
So
So
that was in
2015.
yeah,
Yeah.
no 2014.
Oh, SPL. Was that SPL 5 at 2014? Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the first one.
Because I had always played OU. Everyone knew I played OU, but Hugo was like, "Yo, will you play?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Will you play UU?" I was like, "Yeah, bro, I'll play UU, whatever."
I remember your reputation before that being on the IDM forums where CTC had those trainer cards, and
Oh my god, bro.
yeah, and you were like you specialized in Custap Scarm HO, and that was all you could use.
Okay, look. They hated, but nobody could beat me with offense BKC.
Uh-huh.
I was so cold with Hyper offense, and they all hated because they would always complain, "Oh, he just uses Mach Punch, Breloom, and Extreme Speed Dragonite. How do we beat it?" But dude, I would chop.
Oh no, I believe it. That sounds like CTC. Like when he lost and it was
all of IDM up with HO.
when he lost and it was anyone's fault but his own. He a breeze rolled in when he was about to click the right move and stuff like that.
He's so bad on that trainer card too. They were like, he can make plays, but and he might be like intimidating to foreign foes, but those who know him know he'll choke when the time.
Yeah,
is
that's
right.
pretty much exactly what it was. Yeah. All right, so SPL 5, you have the fiasco. It's fine. So 2014, how do you continue? What's shaping you? I know at this point you know the IDM guys like Hugo and CTC, and you're hanging around playing XY, but
So after
where do you go from there?
I go on break because I was just doing some other stuff, and of course my morale was kind of like bored of Pokemon after losing so much. So I go on break for 2 or 3 months. I don't play, or I don't even log on. Then I come back in the summer. I have a lot of fun because XY was a ton of fun.
It was.
I played Frontier, had a lot of fun in Frontier. I think I went like 6'3".
Sorry to interrupt,
He's
but is that the tournament where you use CTC's Earthquakeless Garchomp?
Yes, it is. Yes,
Yeah,
it is.
yeah.
That's the one. Yeah, yeah. Versus blue.
Because they'll never know you don't have Earthquake until you kill everything out. Yeah, it's.
Yup, yup, yup.
I mean,
It's
in
fucked up.
theory, Dragon and Fire is only resisted by Heatran, so I mean, what could go wrong?
BKC, you need to use that set one day. If you use it, then they'll know. Then it'll be certified.
Maybe what I need to do is, spread the gospel of really stupid sets, and then have the metagame shape to be really terrible, so then I can just, yeah,
And then we can farm free points. Bro.
exactly.
BKC, you figured it all out.
Too bad this plan is on camera and we have to start over now. Anyway, go on. You're 6-3 in Frontier. I remember you played blue in that one, and
I lost to blue. I
yeah.
lost to Risk Scarface, and then the final loss was CTC. But then after he beat me, he was like, "Ha, guys, it was a joke." But why couldn't he just give me the win, BKC? No, he had to beat me and then tell everyone, "Ha, it was a joke," instead of just giving me the win.
yeah, that sounds like CTC.
Insane, right? So, anyways, technically my third loss was CTC. That was that.
Technically, yeah. Technicality, all that stood between you and the trophy. Yeah.
All my wins were in Gen 6, though. I really enjoyed XY.
Who were the brains in that? I remember FLCL, Stathicus, CBB.
I beat FLCL, I beat Stat, I beat Joey. Shake was a brain, right?
I don't think so.
He
No.
wasn't. He was a brain the year before. CBB was a brain. They had the old Gen brains too, didn't they?
Yes, they did. They did.
Yeah. Weren't you a brain?
I was in Gen 4. Yeah, me and Phil. No, me and Phil and Tama. I think we had 3. We might have had 2 actually.
Jama a brain?
Yeah, he was in black and white. Him, blue, and actually I think it was 2. I think it was Ojama in blue and black and white. Me and Phil in Gen 4 or Tama, and then Gen 3 was like Golden Sun and M Dragon.
Damn, that Frontier was such a gauntlet.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. Well, I mean, here's why it was like that. I know it was like, well, no one can ever win this, but the reason is that Frontier was supposed to be the unbeatable tournament back in
I feel
DPP.
like nowadays somebody could do it.
I think so too. I absolutely think so.
People are so good at multiple gens these days.
Yes,
Somebody
absolutely.
could beat the Frontier this time.
Well, I mean, it'd still be insanely hard.
It's insanely hard.
But yeah,
Three lives, but
the thing is that in Gen 4, then it was supposed to be an unbeatable tournament, and then Atticus just fucking smokes. Well, he doesn't smoke it. I mean, he beat it, but I guess he didn't really like crush its morale or anything. And then everyone's like, well,
it's so impressive when someone can win a tournament like this.
yeah. And then Goki won, and Goki, that was what really cemented Goki as one of the best ever. And then people kept winning. Blue won, but that was shady. But then Phil 7086 won, and then Ray won, and then they were like, all right, people have won every year for like half a decade. We got to make this insanely hard. So that was why. But it was kind of I think it was kind of unfairly hard because people at that point didn't really understand all the gens.
True,
So
it wasn't even like when I was talking to Lavos, he was like, dude, GSC 4 years ago and 5 years ago was so awful compared to today.
I mean, you.
I mean, maybe awful is a strong word, but that's his words. But like, basically his point was that like the metagame has really evolved, and people's understanding has really evolved too.
I mean, yes, but you can apply that for every metagame because look, in retrospect, every metagame looks primitive from a modern lens. Let's look at Oris. I know sometimes people make jokes about 2015 Oris, like, oh, the Dark Ages with Hippowdon and Life Orb Latios and Talonflame, and I'm like, yeah, but at the same time, first of all you can beat is in front of you, and at that time, that was what was the best around, and I don't know, like, retroactively shitting on the past is one of my least favorite things to see. Because sometimes I'm not saying every game was amazing or that it was better. I do think the average skill level now is a lot higher, even though sometimes fundamentals get forgotten in favor of, being flashy. But the overall skill level is a lot higher. However, that doesn't mean that, 10 years ago, then Smoke and Tour was a joke and things like that. I mean, sometimes you look at some old games from a really long time ago and you're like, my God, these guys are so good. So, as always, like, I think there are more generally good players now, but the best players of 10 years ago and the best players of now, they were playing the same game. They were functionally pretty much just as good. And if you want to so in terms of actually playing, and in terms of metagame stuff, wow, the metagame advanced because of the knowledge accrued by all those players doing it. So, Anyway, that's an unrelated tangent. But yeah, we're still shaping you. Sorry. So you're 2014. XY is a lot of fun. Is this a post Aegis Slash ban or when it was still
Yeah,
around?
yeah, it's yeah around that time, so the summer.
Hmm.
So playing a lot. I still play on PO a ton. I still record PO live. I don't even play Showdown. Anyway, I played Grand Slam, had some fun in that, whatever. Next year, I played SPL in 2015.
Hmm. You were playing
Hugo
NU in
again,
that, I think.
NU again for Hugo, because Jam was playing OU,
Hmm.
which is cool. So that was the fun year. I was with Jam, Joey, him. We didn't have Mark. Yeah, he was gone. He
Hmm.
was on fucking
Sharks or something.
Scooters.
Scooters, yeah, he was.
Yeah, he was on Scooters. Anyway, NU happens, played that, mixed results. I do get some wins, beat Soul Gazer, and yeah, I went like 3-5, I think. Yeah,
Hmm.
3-5 at NU. Um, and then during that time, I was also in the infamous OST 11.
Yes, you were.
Infamous
Yes.
OST 11. So that happened, and so I made it to finals of that.
Would you say that was your breakout moment?
Uh, I would say it was when people were like, oh, they were like starting to watch my games. I
Right.
would
In
say
OU.
I don't
In
think I was
OU.
playing at such a I don't think I was playing at a crazy level. Like I think like even in 2014 and shit when I was losing, I still think I played well in OU. Like,
Right.
even if you see my videos and shit, like I still thought I was pretty good. I just thought like I had just dropped the ball. So I was like whatever. So even in back then in my OST run, like I was playing pretty well.
Hmm.
So I was happy. Made it to finals. Unfortunately, lost to White Queen. I remember that was some of the most stressed I've ever been playing Pokemon, which
Mm.
was weird.
That,
I
it,
didn't even really understand what trophies and all that shit was back then because
yeah.
I never made it to any finals. I never played any tournaments. I didn't sign up for shit. Like I just played SPL, and then this was just my second SPL. It was like my second tournament. So I didn't even really understand what trophies were or anything. But in this OST, I don't know. I really, really, really wanted to win. I like stressed my head off.
No, that's when your hobby becomes more stressful when you kind of dread it.
Exactly.
I mean,
That's what
once the game starts, you're usually okay, but
yeah. Remember, I also lost to Style at that point.
yeah,
A lot of them had quit, so
it's horrible.
the whole like vibe was horrible because everyone at IDM was at like it was like whack because Hugo had just quit and
Hmm.
everyone like was in a weird spot, right? So
Hmm.
in general, it was just like what the fuck? Like I didn't know. So I left. I left for a while because I was like, okay, I lost OST, SPL's done. Smoke on, I'm done with for now because like I wasn't really ever a part of it like that.
Yeah, but
I
I mean breakout because that's when people really noticed you could play OU because before they were
yeah,
just like,
that's when I got to show OU.
yeah,
But
because before you were just kind of stuck in that lower tier rut by virtue of not being able to play OU and anything big. But that was and that
chance to show it.
yeah, and that's like that's what the individual tournaments really help with. Really showing, hey, this guy can play. So
Yeah, and then
I think
I
that was big.
I quit Pokemon for a little bit after I lost to White Queen,
Hmm.
and I stopped uploading. But then I started uploading again, and then I created Hita Fajita,
Hmm.
and that was
Clearly the worst thing to ever happen to competitive
that shit
Pokemon.
was
Yeah.
so fun. That gave me a good ass time and made me love Pokemon again. Anyways, I made some small gun friends at that point, namely Tasung, SG, FLCL.
Were you added to that gigantic OLT Skype chat?
I wasn't in their group. We had another group with like Weepone and Shake and like Afro Smash. Like it was a PO plus some of those small gun guys conglomerate. That's bot. So
Hmm.
that was our tag pro group. We used to play tag pro in there.
Oh right, Cosine and
I
his
used to
tag
play a
pro.
lot of Pokemon. Yeah, Cosine too, right? So I used to play a lot of Pokemon with Cosine, TDK to Sung. That's when these guys were all popping, right?
Hmm.
Like they were starting to grow up as their name too. And I remember I was talking to Jam, and I'm like, Jam, I be smoking everybody in OU. It's easy. And Jam's like, you're talking a lot of shit. Why don't you sign up then for SPL? And I was like, okay, I will. So I signed up for OU. I got bought obviously from virtue of the OST performance. Shake bought me for 7K, and I turned up. And then that was the first real breakout because I had a really amazing season.
Hmm. Yes, you did. Can you give us the details on that season? All I remember is you beat ABR and were his only loss the entire season. That was also ABR's breakout season.
That was ABR's breakout and my breakout, which is awesome because ABR and me were like brothers. Like, because we had just. Because ABR played OLT and made finals.
Yes, he
Right
did.
before that. So, and me and ABR were prepping every week. That's how I met ABR because he was like, yo, can you like help me out or something with some shit? And I was like, sure. And he was cool. And then ABR, an amazing, amazing builder. He built the majority of my teams I used in SPL that year. He built about, I think, 6 of the 11 I used. And I mean, I did great, so I have to attribute a lot of the credit to him as well for helping me with my team building and stuff. But yeah, the first 3 weeks I played Tasung week 1, I
Oh, I remember that game. That game is actually on my channel for anyone who would like to go
Yes,
digging.
it is.
That was
It is. I remember I watched it and I was like, hell yeah. And you were so happy for me when I won.
well,
Bro,
it was because
I
you missed a
know.
Draco or something
No, I
ridiculous.
got axed so bad. And I was just so it's so good to watch people commentate your battles and they want you to win. Like the
Right.
bias, I love watching that.
I shouldn't be biased. I used to be really biased in some of my
We were
videos, but
bros, bro. You had to rep me.
I mean, yeah, but it was more about I think it was fair's fair for the
True,
sake
fair is
of
fair.
that ridiculous whatever happened. I think it was like it was something on top of a Draco miss.
And then he like crit me or some shit. Yeah,
Yeah.
he crit me with his Metagross.
I remember I really liked that team you had. It was like some Diancie Volcarona stuff.
Yeah, so it was a team that ABR had built, but I had changed the Keldeo to Breloom
Mm-hmm.
because Tasung was using a ton of like super fat like Breloom Clefable shit. I mean not Breloom, Hippowdon Clefable,
Mm-hmm.
Excadrill. I was like, oh, Breloom will kill him or something. So, but it was pretty bad.
I think Keldeo probably would have made that better. Yeah, just because Keldeo was so good.
Yeah,
Yes.
but yeah, beat Tasung. Next week I played Bengay, beat Bengay. Next week I beat ABR, beat ABR. So at that point it was like, oh shit, guys taking out like all the hitters, right? So
Right.
I was feeling myself too. I was like, hell yeah, I'm nice. Then the next week I played Sweepage, and oh man, bro, oh man.
That game is also on my channel for anyone who'd like to go digging.
His stock was at an all-time low because he was talking so much shit, and he had just gotten destroyed in 7 turns by Tasung. And I
Right.
was like, whatever, I'm gonna smoke Sweetfish. And we played our game, and I had a great matchup, but I made 0 plays. Like I just made 0 plays the entire game, and I lost. It was an extremely close game, 1-0.
It was a great game,
It
actually.
was a great game too. It was a great game, but I was so upset after I lost that game because I knew there were so many times I could have made some better plays, and I had a pretty great matchup as well. So I was very disappointed in myself with that loss. Fairness to him and everything, but I remember after I lost,
No, I know that feeling. It's like it was a great game, so like I should enjoy it for that. And the other guy played really well too. But why didn't I just do X Y Z?
yeah,
You just want to,
why did I just fucking win, right? So,
yeah,
which is fine, but that was a great game.
that was.
And it stopped my momentum a little bit. So then I went on a 3-game win streak, lost to Master Class. Next round I played Frizzy. I was supposed to play CTC, but
Oh, and he bitched out, yeah.
yeah, he pitched out, gave Frizzy a lame ass stall team, and I smoked him. So I was happy about that. The next week I played X-Ray, Infamous, got 6
Oh yes, I remember. That's another great example of getting talked into a team you don't really want to use. Because I remember you used that stall that TDK and CBB made and was going around, and X-Ray had like Mega Garchomp Sand.
My god, he had Mega Garchomp Sand Taunt Talonflame, dude. I was like,
Oh, and he had 2 regenerators, I think.
2 regen core.
Yeah, it was
No,
it was
I got
absurd.
obliterated.
Yeah, it was absolutely, and then that's the kind of game like. I'm not saying you shouldn't use stall, but there are sometimes you bring it against a guy you don't need to, and you're just like, why? Why did I leave this up to chance? And this is a theme we're going to be revisiting often, I hope. Leaving games up to chance when you don't need to, and we'll revisit this when we talk about cheese later on. But I'm not saying stall is necessarily cheese, but sometimes when you bring stall and just feel a complete inability to outplay the other guy at all because you can't do damage, it's just and you're always on the back foot, so he can double switch 16 times. It's a horrible feeling. So,
So then, at this point, I was kind of mad because, not mad, just because, like, no, I was mad because I was hard on myself for losing at this point.
so your record's like 4-2 if I'm counting right.
Yeah, 4-2, and people were gassing me up too crazy at this point. DC. I remember
Well, that's the smoking culture for you because
best player of like the year at this time too, even though they were basing it off like 3 games and an OST. I remember those Smoke On Awards. I was like, what the fuck?
oh right, well that's because that was for 2015, but I guess the voting was held around there.
Makes sense. Like, but I remember people were gassing me so hard, so when I lost, I was like, fuck.
Well, I would say that if it was for the OST, then it has some basis because you really broke out, like most improved player or something. But that kind of it's not exactly what happened, but it's what happens now because we don't play enough games in the circuit year round. I think in some tiers anyway, and even in general. So like those few games that do get played become really important. And because of the nature of Pokemon, then those games, the best of ones at that, can sometimes not go your way, hacks, matchup, or just otherwise. And then too much stock is placed on a really small sample size, and things based off that can just be really inaccurate. So, I think that's something that happens now with all the shit talk and the valuing one win as long as it was flashy and things like that. But that's so that could also possibly be it. But yeah, so you're 4-2 at this point.
Yeah. So the next week, I knew I had to like gas myself up and like hype myself up. So I brought out
Just
no, no, I didn't talk shit. That's
oh, okay,
I
okay,
didn't talk shit.
yeah,
I was playing Badoosh. Badoosh is my friend, so
right,
I didn't talk shit. I
right.
never talk shit at this point because you remember I was a good guy. So
Yeah, those are the
I brought
days.
I brought my favorite team, the Save Light Talent from last year. I mean it's been a year since I used it, but I figured it was still good, right? The 6 months are great.
Right.
I won pretty well. I played a good game. I was very happy because I got to use my favorite team ever.
Hmm.
And so I was happy, right?
That's another good feeling when you get to use your favorite team.
That team's my favorite team ever. Worked out great, and I was just pumped up after the win. And at that point, 5-2, so record was pretty strong as well. Next week, I played Joey. We used Tyrantrum and Pidgeot and Infernape and all that shit. I lost that game. That was like a fun Battle Factory type shit.
Right,
I lost
right.
that 5-3 at this point.
Because you guys were already qualified, so
Yeah,
you know
we
what.
both had qualified, so we were just fucking around. So week 9, I played CBB. Gave him those Metacham hands. You know what it is. Those Metacham kicks. Sorry. So I kicked CBB out of this tournament. Bam, 6 times. That was
Did you actually kill all 6 with high jump kick?
nah.
Only 5. It's okay.
Only 5. Only
Yeah.
5. Lottie died to fake out. Lottie died
Oh well, it was still Metacham then, so yeah.
Metacham's destruction.
God, that in theory that is so stupid. You paralyze stuff with Jirachi, and then Metacham just kills everything.
That's all I did. That team was so good. So that was the beginning of that team.
Yeah.
That's when people saw that team. They were like, that shit is too powerful.
For reference, this team is Metacham, Keldeo, Jirachi, Rotomwash, Latios, and Landorus.
Yo,
Yeah, yeah. So Metacham was really. This was the team that really vaulted Metacham into the spotlight, and because how do you beat Metacham? Well, you let something die and send in something faster. What if I don't have anything faster? Well, then you lose.
and people realized there's nothing that can beat Metacham for a long
Yeah,
time.
because people were using Calm Clefable, and Adamant High Jump Kick just cleaves it in half. So
Easy. But then semifinals came up. I lost to ABR. That was a demoralizing loss because he counter-teamed me so well.
Ah,
He
that's
brought- he
it's
brought
horrible
one of
feeling.
the worst teams I ever saw, and I was like mad at myself because I was like, I really let myself get so predictable that he brought this shit team.
That's another thing I think is a product of not having that many games, and each individual game becoming like how we mentioned Cheese earlier. That ABR team I remember was like chancy offense that was absolutely destroyed by what was it, Scizor?
Scizor, 6-0. It
Ah.
never switches out. It just leads and wins.
Yeah, that's a horrible
I was like,
feeling.
dude, how can- and I remember he told me after this game, he's like, do you know your stats up until this point? I'm like, no. He's like, it's week 10. You use 7 Keldeo, 7 Landers, 7 Latios. I was like,
Keld Lando, that was the Blunder signature.
that was the meme. I would only use those 3.
I mean, they're good, so
Loved them so much. But ABR, yeah, he beat my ass. Had to hold the L. And then finals, I beat Reiku, which is a great game.
that is one of my favorite Horus games of all time. I don't have it uploaded, but I would recommend looking up the replay. It is in the Smogon Premier League forum, in the logs and replays thread, 2016. Definitely check that one out. It is Blunder in full force. I remember it came down to a really tough prediction with Crawdaunt versus Amoonguss.
It was a 50-50 Crawdon Amoonguss. If he SDs on my Switch, because I died a knockoff, but I could drain predicting him to SD. And it won me the game.
Yeah, that was a really tight one.
That was a game after I had finished, because I remember that was a real stressful game, because we were down 3-5, and Shake's like, you need to win. I was like, oh, I got it. But I was very happy after that win, because I was like, this is probably the best game I've ever played in my life. Like, at that point, that was the greatest game I've ever played.
That was a really, really great one. Yeah.
That was the best game I've ever played.
And then you guys came up short for the trophy.
Yes, unfortunately lost,
Yeah.
which was humbling. It kind of sucked for me because I was like, man, another finals. I even won this time, but no dice.
Yeah.
Happens though. Very happy with my record, 7-4. At this point, I'm established as like
Yeah.
the OU threat. So Smoke on tour.
The OU threat, he says. Not an OU threat, the OU threat.
I was the OU threat at the time against each other.
Sure.
At that time, I was pretty hot.
Right. Not denying that. Yeah.
No, ABR was hotter. ABR was hotter. I got it.
And around this time was, I believe, when you first qualified for Smogon Tour.
Exactly, yes. And this was a weird era because this was also actually no, you're right. Never mind. Yeah, Smoke on tour. I qualified for that. I won round 1 versus X-Ray. I was very happy with that because X-Ray beat my ass in SPL. So I was very happy to hand him the L in Smoke on tour.
Yeah.
and make it to the next
I
round.
remember this was when you were becoming more involved in the community and such, and there was
Yeah,
a
so
X-Ray was using his balanced Starmie in Oris, and I remember you in the post SPL thread. Then you were posting something about how the kind of team he was using was really popular. I'm forgetting the details and totally butchering it, but I remember he had like a Terrakion and
then I did contribute to the OU forums. Like I would
yeah,
post about Pokemon I liked. Because
yeah,
I had also I upload, right? So I
yeah,
play so much with so many different Pokemon. So sometimes I make a post like, oh, Zapdos is pretty good. I've
yeah,
been using this, and
yeah.
so I had
I
made
remember
lists
you
about
like to use that Jam team with Superior and Talonflame, and
exactly.
that's actually what you
That's the one I
used.
used
X-Ray, yeah.
versus Extra Young. So that was one of my favorite teams ever. Gem's flagship. I won that pretty nicely. I used a team from Smurf and DPP, some HO, worked great. Lost
What team was that? Oh, it had like five water types.
it had no, it was Kingdra, Starmie,
It was Starmie lead, yeah.
Scizor, Heatran, Rotom Wash.
Yeah, sounds
And
like Smurf.
I think four of them are choiced. And then Kingdra's Rain Dance and Heatran is Pasho. Such
Yeah,
an awesome team.
yeah. It was very powerful.
The reason I used it is because I saw M Dragon 5-0 X-Ray with the team the week before, and I was like, M Dragon, give me it, I'm gonna use it, and then it worked. I was happy. Um,
Yeah,
and
so
then
X-Ray, and then round two.
Solwyn.
Oof.
Solwyn, okay, so Black and White, I choked in Black and White. I brought Roserade, got to tell bullshit,
Mm.
Sand, and I misplayed for sure. He has Scizor versus Roserade turn one. I go for HP Fire thinking it kills instead of Sleep Powder. It only does 65. He's Spadef. He U-turns out, traps me with Duck Trio, and I die. Um, and just from there, it just got bad. If I Sleep Powdered the Scizor turn one, it would have been a much better position, I think. Because I could have trapped his Tentacle with my God, put up a T-Spike, and then won with Sub-CM Keld probably.
Yeah, I remember that.
Keld had a pretty good matchup. I just really played really bad.
And I mean, the team didn't help matters much.
Yeah, the team was not too good, but I could have played better. So I lost that. And then Gen 6, I got hacked pretty badly.
I remember
remember
that
the team
too.
I built. It was a Heracross, Sand. I wasn't a big fan of the team, but I was actually going to use Jam's team again. But I don't know. I got nervous about reusing the team. So I
Yeah.
bought that team. I played pretty well, but I did get pretty unlucky. And then I ended up narrowly losing that, and that was the end of Smoke on Tour.
Mhm.
And then I sat out World Cup that year.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I didn't play World Cup.
And then you came back for the fall tour, the last one of DPP.
Back for the fall tour, the last one at DPP. Qualified for that. Lost to Jimmy Turtwig round one. I beat him in the first game we played, which was
DPP.
DPP.
Yeah.
Smoked him in DPP somehow. Jama made me a really good team. And then Gen 6 and Gen 5, he handled me pretty well. That was that. Gen 6 I couldn't win. He had like a 6-0 matchup with Gastro.
Uh huh.
Actually,
I remember you had this ABR team with like T-Spikes, Nidoking, and Thunderous.
joking, but he played smart, only got turn one poison,
Mm.
and then he still swept me with Gastro.
Mm.
And then Gen 5, I played pretty sloppy, and in the beginning, because I was kind of tilted, and I gave him a pretty good advantage. I think it was T-Tar versus T-Tar, and I just sacked mine to superpower in the first couple turns.
Yeah, that was rough.
Yeah, just tilted a little bit, lost that. Anyway, at this point, I'm in university, so I'm getting more busy. 2017 comes around, SM, play that in SPL, team with ABR. We thought we were fucking Splash Brothers, making the most broken team of all time. Back then, we were the hottest ones, bro. We were ranked 1 and 2 on
No,
the
I remember that. I remember that well.
ABR, and we were bug buddies too, so we were like, oh, it's a wrap. You're all fucked. And then we went 9 and 9 between us that season, which is a horrible record for us.
Yeah, I remember that. I think that was ABR's one negative season ever.
No. He went 5-4. I went 4-5.
Oh, never mind.
Yeah. So, in SM, he went 5-4 and I went 4-3. My losses were in ORS and ABB. But anyway, yeah.
Mhm.
Me and ABR, that's our team, the Ruiners, and the team looks good on paper. I think we're ranked number 1 in the power rankings. We fall extremely flat. I think we end up as the last 3 performing teams in SPL. That SPL was kind of a blur, very boring. Nobody really talked on that team either. It was honestly just me, ABR, Hansuki. So,
What an odd third person to throw into that.
yeah, but no, I like him. He was a good teammate.
Right.
But for the most part, yeah, that team, the dynamic was a little off, but it was okay. So anyway, that happens. Again, qualify for Smoke on Tour, lose to Alexander in a 3-game series again, round 1. World Cup happens. I go 3-0, which was great, in the pool of death with Ray Scarface, Kick-Ass, or Mazar. So I 3-0 that pool, which was nice. I was getting hot again. 2017.
Noticing kind of like a streaky thing here.
Yeah. I was going on streaks a lot. So So
Yeah.
I had cooled down after the SPL
Mm.
because yeah, I had done good, but then I lost the S tour round one, and then my SPL was average. But then I got hot again in the summer. Fall tour came around. I beat ABR and I beat Poges, and then I lost to Hut
Mm-hmm.
the round in the semifinals.
Ooh, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, lost to him. That was very demoralizing because I really thought I had a good shot at winning uh, the game. Even the first game he took off me, the black white one, I thought I played amazing. He just had a great matchup.
Mm-hmm.
Like every turn I had was like really good.
And then he just had the right Dragonite set,
Yeah, he
yeah.
just had the right Dragonite, but like every turn was going my way. I just couldn't beat the last one.
Mm-hmm.
And then Gen 6, unfortunately, I got a little unlucky. Could have played better. There are turns I definitely could have played better, but it is what it is. Lost that series. I was pissed off. That was the end. That was also when university was getting really challenging, and I was just had a lot of stuff going on, so I was in a pretty bad mood in general with Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
But nonetheless, SPL comes around. I sign up at mid-season because I do not feel like playing the whole time. And then everyone claims that me signing up at mid-season was supposed to be some big cheat heist type thing, but that's not true. I just did not want to play the whole SPL, seriously.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I go for 6K to the Tyrants, right?
Yes, that's correct. I remember you were part of the SPL 9 Tyrants, yeah.
Yeah, SPL 9 Tyrants. I'm a Tyrants. Yeah. I've been on that team twice now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Ray buys me to the Tyrants. My team is amazing. It's such an amazing team. It's like me, Dice, Lavos. I had a lot of good players on that team.
Christo?
Of course, Christo was on there. Hog was co-managing as well. Our team was very powerful.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Oh, you guys even got. I remember that midseason because they got not only you, but also Earthworm at midseason.
Yeah,
Absurd.
Yeah, but Earthworm, we unfortunately had to put in RBY.
Yeah, that's. I mean, but still, it's still Earthworm, you know?
Yeah, true.
So, I mean, that team, I think, was why midseason is just completely dead now. Like, you can't.
That is why that's what Tony told me. He's like, yeah.
No, that's 100% it because.
Yeah. I felt bad because like that wasn't the intention at all.
I know, but at the same time, it's the idea, you know, because you can really just kind of skimp on it. It's really gaming the system. So now you can only sign up at midseason if you originally signed up. So it's
Which sucks, man. Because playing 9 weeks is tough, man. I really wish sometimes
it
I could
is
play
it is.
4 weeks, yeah. But it is what it is. Anyway, I go 3-1 in the regular season for the Tyrants, and then I have that biggest Pokemon battle of all time versus CBB. So that is the most watched game ever. Still, you know.
Actually, for my money, Maryland versus Untouchable from 2007 had 5 million views. Yeah, I know.
Live.
Yes.
Okay. But, okay.
Yo, I remember watching that game. I watched it with my roommate, and she called me a loser for liking Pokemon. Yeah.
So I gassed that shit up. Anyway.
How many people were on the server at once?
It was 2.5K on the server, or 3K on the server, and there were more than 2K watching Joey's stream. So probably like.
That's amazing.
It's probably like 4K. Yeah, I was very happy with the turnout, especially because I hyped it up for only like 3-4 days. So that happened. That was like just a little fun thing to do. TDK, I played him in the semifinals.
That was a great game. That was a really great game.
I lose. He played great. I played pretty decent. Again, you always think there are things you could have differently, but TDK beats me. Tiebreak happens, and the big thing is they didn't put me in the tiebreak, and everyone was like, "What the fuck?" I was in Cancun on vacation. That's it. Like that's why I wasn't in the tiebreak.
What the fuck is Cancun?
I was getting lit in Cancun. I was on spring break, and then
Sure.
yeah,
Cancun is code for I pretended to be gone for a week.
The worst game ever versus you. I would have popped you, BKC, but it's okay.
Wow, it's such a shame that we'll never know.
It's such a shame we'll never know. But yes,
No, it's okay because John laced me with this amazing Zygarde set that was just. Oh, that Zygarde was so stupid. Oh, I'm so glad it's gone.
We lost to your team. Yeah, so we lost to your team in these semis, and that was the end. Again, Smogon Tour 2018, and then I win. Yeah, and then
That was so anticlimactic. Failure for a bunch of years. Oh, then I won, I guess. No, I remember that journey very well.
I think if there was anything I did in that time in between, and that's
That was just persistence and learning from mistakes, I think. Yeah.
kept playing S Tour.
No nonsense.
The thing is, though, after losing SPL, after losing the S Tour in the fall, when I lost the semis, I was very demoralized because farthest I ever got, right? And I was really looking good to win it because my last few opponents were Haya and like FLCL. I think I would have like had a good chance versus.
Hiya.
That's his name. Haya. Anyway, even though I was sad after that loss, I had changed my mentality coming shown myself that I really can play nice, like when I need to. So I just need to work on the clutch. And then
Hmm.
I think I started to tighten it up, and I clutched more on tour. So I was very happy.
Yeah.
I think that was the best I had played in a while. I was happy with it, and then
I
just
think you
retired.
versus Solwind is one of the. You know how there are a lot of finals games that just don't live up to the hype because some people play like idiots and some people choke and there's a lot of hacks. Well, I think you versus Solwind was one of the rare exceptions to that because even though
Yeah,
Pokemon usually is intent on making those seemingly epic games turn out to be disappointments, but I think that one was all three games just phenomenal. I mean, sure, there was stuff that could have been done different, but I think it was two of the most
yeah,
representative players of the tournament at their peak. So I really value that one.
me and him both smoke on tour. It was my fifth one in a row. It was like his what seventh or eighth.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, so we were like what we were addicted to. Like smoke on tour is our crack. Like we wanted
I
to
mean,
play
it's the
so
best
bad.
tournament.
It's
It's
the best
regarded
tournament.
as the best
It's the
tournament for a
crack,
reason.
dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so I love that tournament so much. I have so much fun playing live tour. So anyway, I win that. I'm ecstatic. I'm so happy. Winning that completely just I felt like my soul completely left me in terms of like Pokemon. You know, like I felt like I had like some part of me that had like shackled me to Pokemon was just broken the second
Right.
I won.
Oh, it's a
I have
great
no
feeling.
idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, you do have an idea. You're a champion, like you know.
Yeah.
Like so much
It's
stress, everything. I finally won. I did what I wanted. I felt so free.
the
I felt
issue
so
is when
happy.
you think too much time has passed and you're like, well, I got to keep
Exactly.
proving it, and then I got to go through.
I need to be hot again.
Yeah, and then
Exactly.
you have to go
Exactly.
through the whole process again, and some people can't even do it once. So,
Yeah, and
uh,
you want to go again and again.
and then
But
people are like, dude, you have nothing to prove, and they're like, what the hell you mean I have nothing
I
to
remember
prove?
I used to tell that to Poek all the time. Remember Poek won OLT in 2016,
He
did the
did.
OE run. Yeah, he was amazing. To me, he was the best OE player at that time. And then he would get hacked or he'd lose. Like he lost OST top eight, and he would be like upset if he got hacked. And I'd always be like, whatever, bro, you already won. And then one day he told me, he was like, bro, you always say that, but like, bro, it's been a while since I won. I just want to play and like win. And I was like, damn, you're right. Like I completely get it. That's not like one win can just satisfy you all the time. Most
Yeah,
people would
I
think
mean,
like that.
a
Some would just
common
one win is
culture.
all I need, you know?
A common cultural thing is you're only as good as your last tournament, which I think is really unfair because it goes back to the whole Pokemon before 2016 was non-existent and stupid, and that whole moronic argument. But
Yeah.
I think it's more about like you start buying into your own paranoia and that kind of thing,
True, true, true.
and I mean sometimes it just
It was nice to have the ring though, because this was the peak of
yes,
Blunder and
definitely,
trophy memes, dude. This
yeah,
was the peak of those memes, so that shit had me pissed as well.
like
Because
even if you just
even the clowns would say that shit. I'd be like, what
yeah.
the fuck? So that was nice. I
Yeah,
was happy that happened.
clowns popping up and
Yeah.
the
Oh my
sideline
god.
shit talking. That is also a relatively new happening, I guess.
Yeah, AIDS. But I won. I was happy. I even played Smoke on Tour that fall, but
Mm,
I got way too busy doing
mm,
other stuff in university. But the first 3 weeks, I was number one. For the first 3 weeks straight.
uh
I
huh.
had 22 points going into week four. I remember I was doing amazing, but then I literally got too busy to like play, which sucked.
Oh, it's a
Uh,
horrible feeling.
yeah, and I also didn't really care too much about Pokemon either. Like it wasn't a priority for me at all. I had way more going on, so
But I
I was
think
like,
that
I'm
leads
gonna play
into the
online.
next thing that happens because that break from Pokemon leads to SBL 10, and you tell us what happened.
Exactly. So SPL 10, I was gonna delete my sign up the day before. I was originally not gonna play, and then Ray hits me up. He's like, and I remember me and Ray talking about SPL even back in like September, October, and he said some shit like, "I'll retain you." But me and Ray weren't really like we were like pretty good
Well,
friends at that
I'm pretty
point.
sure you
So
couldn't retain you though because of a
no, no, no,
midseason.
sorry, not retain me, but he said he would get me, and
Yeah.
I wasn't sure because I was like, dude, I'm gonna be expensive now. Like, because you need to understand, I have finessed SPL so hard. I went 3K, 3K, 7K, and then 6K because of the midseason. So I had finessed my SPL price so hard for so many years. Like I had always been broke, but I knew this SPL, if I went dry auction because midseason was gone, I was gonna go for a lot. So I wasn't sure if Ray would trust me like that. But I worked with him and we created a draft. So at that point I was in, right? Because I couldn't just have this draft plan and then not actually play.
Right. Right.
So then I wanted to get my friends obviously because I wanted to sign up and I was talking to all these teams and I was like, "Will you guys get me?" Blah 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 blah. Like I was talking to Raiders because you know my friends, right? I'm
Yeah.
okay with them
Yeah.
too. But they were like, "Yeah, like we have 15K," and I'm like, "I'm not gonna be 15K." Like, fuck. So they all wanted to get other people over me, which is fine. I understand. So I knew my friends were gonna get me. So I was like, "Okay, if Ray gets me, I'm gonna make my team." And we worked together with Hog. I had all my friends. CT for one, Poick and Joey. I got them. So I got a bunch of my So I was very happy with. Um, and yeah, ended up playing SPL 10.
Hmm.
That was when I came back as the villain. That was when I adopted my villain persona.
Oh yeah. Oh, a persona. Sure, sure, sure.
Dude, come on, come on.
I think you just watched too many superhero movies and you were like,
I
I
don't know what
like
it
this.
was, but I was too hot after the trophy. But anyway, I do think that my break from Pokemon, long break, so basically more than 6 months. When I came back and played SPL 10, I was playing at a level I had not played at before.
Right.
I When I was playing SPL 10, it was better than how I'd ever played in any other tournament. Like I was at the top of my game. I was like untouchable. Of course, the finals, but yeah. So SPL 10 came. Had an amazing, amazing season. Had a bunch of fun. Only used CTC's teams. He gave me just fun stuff. Was gonna play Oras the whole season, but ended up playing SM. Had a blast doing it. Didn't turn out how I expected, but happy nonetheless. Loved my team. Never had a bad moment playing SPL with my team. Honestly, the most fun I've ever had on Smogon. And it's funny because previously, if you ask me, I would say the most fun I ever had on Smogon was SPL 7.
Hmm.
And now SPL 10, I love that team just as much as I love my SPL 7 team, if not more. So I had a complete blast. Loved Pokemon. Yeah, the ending was pretty tragic, but it happens, right? Still performed amazing. Still had the best OU record, all that shit. So that's cool. Sucks that we couldn't tie it out, pull it up. But all in all, happy with the tournament. Had a blast. Really, I had a blast.
So would you attribute it to the break,
Yeah,
or largely to the break?
I think the break has to be it, right? And also just the fact that I'm not burning myself out playing every tournament.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point is when I realized, okay, I would never play a tournament I don't like again. I
Mm-hmm.
never sign up for Classic now. I never sign up for OLT, and I never sign up for Slam.
Mm-hmm.
Because those tournaments I don't like, and they give me like OLT is stress, right? So just in general, I got to cut all the tournaments I don't like, and I only play team tournaments. So just being able to take a break, I wasn't even in the Smogon Tour Discords and none of that stuff, and I didn't really talk in any of even my friend Discords from guys who were playing tournaments because I just felt disconnected, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
when I came back and like I just hear people talking about new names, I'm like, who the fuck are these guys? Like people, like when I came back after losing SPL, right? Because I took a break, and people were talking about like Sprinkles. So I'm like, who the fuck is Sprinkles? Like I don't even know who these a lot of these users are, but it's because Steam just changes so quick nowadays.
Yeah, it's very fleeting. Oh,
Yeah, even if you take a break, it's like boom, like like it's
yeah,
just
so and I think with all the tournaments, sometimes people play like the sub forum PLs and whatever. Then those can really overload you, and then suddenly when it really matters, then it's just like, oh man, I have to play again, and you start dreading it instead of looking forward to it.
yeah.
I think like pressure is good, so games mean something, but sometimes it really sucks when it's like, well, I have all this pressure on me, and I'm not really enjoying the hobby. So a step back sometimes does really well for your perspective.
Yeah,
So and I think that's an
so
example of that.
it was nice, and of course, I attribute that to being having one smoke on tour. So
Hmm.
I allowed myself to be like,
Yeah, right. Once you succeed, it's easy to be like, well, I've already done it, so I can take a step back and come back and have some fun.
exact same conversation. And he completely agreed with me that winning classic was such a load off of like his back.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, and I was like, yep. So anyway, SPL happens. Great experience. And now we're here. Played the World Cup. Went 0-2, but I got hacked both times. Like I know it's lame to be like, oh, I got hacked, but like I did. So
Hmm.
it is what it is. It's fine. I lost World Cup. I mean, my team didn't qualify anyway. World Cup is just kind of for fun. And
Hmm.
now we're here. And I don't think I'm gonna play any tournaments for the rest of the year. But I will be back for SPL.
What about the final Smogon tour with Black and White?
Dude, like, I don't know if I'm gonna have time, bro. I just wish Smogon Tour was in the mornings, honestly.
Yeah.
Friday night and Saturday afternoons are just really hard. Sunday is usually good,
Mhm.
and I know I can qualify on one day a week for sure. It's not hard. I can qualify on one day a week.
I think you might want to just for the historical. Like let me.
And you can see that's what I did 2 seasons ago when I had 22 points. I had only played each Sunday.
Well, I mean more for the fact that you can look back at it, when you're nostalgicing about Black and White and be like, I remember the last Black and White Smogon tour. Like I remember the last Smogon tour with DPP. The last DPP tour, people who hadn't played in like 6 years were popping up and being like, well, I may as well. I'm never gonna get the chance again. So, yeah, maybe something like that. But yeah, it's nice when you can take a step back but sometimes I think even if you haven't succeeded, then sometimes by just continuing to plunge forward, then you might just be holding yourself back. So you really got to force yourself to get away from it for a bit.
But somehow, yeah, breaks away can just do wonders for you. Especially because I stopped playing nervously too. Like all my plays in SPL and stuff like that are crazy too. Like my head, I was just registering as like whatever. I don't like care. Like I'm gonna just win anyway. Like I don't know. Like every game I played, it felt like a heat of fajita game to me. Like I was having such a fun time playing.
Right,
Like my
right.
game versus Kickasser was like 40 turns, 2 minutes
Mm.
somehow. Like, and I remember the whole time I was just having such an exciting time playing. Like I was having such a blast. So yeah, I really loved Pokemon while I was playing too, and of course winning obviously adds to that.
We refer to this in the industry as clicking. No, I'm kidding. I know, I know. Sometimes when you get like that's ideal when you get to such like a second nature point where you're not second guessing yourself and you just go with your gut because you know it's gonna work.
I felt like a mind reader a lot of these times, bro. Like I remember I was like damn, like I'm feeling so good.
Mm-hmm.
I also got to use all these fun teams I like to use. Again, we talk about using your favorite team, and how like it does wonders for you, like for just how you're feeling about battling, right?
Mm-hmm.
Every single week, I used a team that was my favorite team of the week. Seriously, my Kalili team, the Shark team. I used Kickasser's team, which is my favorite team. CGC would give me a new offense every week.
Didn't you use Como O like 3 times?
No. I use it a lot, but I only used it once. I used Sand like 3 times. Yeah, so I used Sand, Rain a couple times, Specs Coco, I mean DD, Water Z, Gera, Rain. Like I used so much fun stuff. And I gotta attribute that to CTC, man. Like obviously he made all my shit, so shout out to Baselord, bro. Like he fucking carried me, of course.
It's
I played it.
it's also easier to to encourage someone to use a certain. I've had this thought when seeing how some people succeed only using other people's teams, and it's kind of like a weight off your mind in the sense that oh, let me just use this guy's team, and because it's made by someone else, it's probably fine, and that gets you over that little mental hurdle you need to cross in order to actually use it. You know?
And it's also effective with CTC. And another thing I recognized, and me and CTC recognized this leading up to this tournament, I was always known as the guy who only uses standard, right? I only use the best mons. I never use heat, whatever. And that's how it was, and I was fine. And I would even say that, like, whatever, I'm only going to use the good Pokemon. This was the tournament I started using whack shit because Gen 7 allows for you to use fun Pokemon because the metagame is so fucked. So yeah, I was using Glalie and all that shit, and I was like, ooh, you can use fun stuff. CTC really put me on a surprise. And I gotta think of
That's the nature of a best of one sometimes, or I mean even best of three, I guess.
No, you're right. That is a big thing with best of one. Your one-off tech hits so many times, and mine hit so many times. If I look back at my games, Glalie destroyed, Komodo destroyed, the Sub-Guerra destroyed. Like a lot of these one-off techs sometimes really put in the work.
Yeah, and it's harder in best of three because you need to come up with several of them. So,
But
yeah.
now we're here. SPL is done. We're here. Maybe I'll try to play the next Smogon tour. If I have time, I'll try to play SPL 11. But at this time, I am really just trying to get the most out of YouTube that I can. So I'm a little bit I'm more removed from Smogon right now. SPL did take a lot out of me, 12 weeks, and the tournament itself was like more than 12 weeks. It was like close to 4 months. Yeah.
Let me tell you a little something I've learned in my time observing Pokemon. People always say, school, I don't know if I'll have the time, but let's be real. It's not that time consuming a hobby if you don't want it to be. So if you don't want to be, slaving over your computer for 16 hours.
But bro, I know you understand.
Yeah.
What you're saying. It's funny that you're saying that because I know you're gonna play and you're gonna be putting in a lot of work too because there's a certain level of quality expected from us.
Yes.
In terms of how well we need to perform.
Well, and even like support the teammates because it's not like you're just there for the wins because even the best players can't guarantee a wins.
I went for 25K. I'm gonna go for 25K next season. You're gonna go for 30 plus. So like, that's the thing. Like, we have to bring in a shit ton of wins, and we have to do other stuff. And I don't know if I can guarantee that I can. I mean, I can win. Yeah, I can play my games, whatever. But I don't know if I can help all the other teams and stuff like that. CTC is very busy too. He gives me teams and stuff, but he's not like always around either for everyone. So we'll see what happens. But I would love to play. Yeah, I love SPL. I'd love to play on any team, but I want to be a Tyrants player again. So yeah, so that's that. I'm chilling now, thinking about YouTube. Still love Pokemon. Still play a shit ton. Yeah.
All right, that was a very comprehensive player history. So,
So there.
all right, so let's continue. What is your favorite generation of OU, or what are your favorite generations of OU, and why?
Okay. Generation 5, 6, and 7 are my favorite gens of OU. It's usually it changes a lot which one is my favorite at the time. So I would say that for the majority of the 3 gens, Black White was my favorite for a long time. Even Yeah, so Black White is when I started. I loved Black White a lot. I loved all the Pokemon. Nostalgia is a big part, right? Because I used to play on PO and call all day with my friends, blah
Sure,
blah blah,
sure.
talking shit, whatever. IBM shit, like so big nostalgia thing, which is why I like Black White. So, and
Mhm.
I still love it as a competitive tier. I think it's an amazing competitive tier, and I think it's very fun too.
Mhm.
I think people hate on it unnecessarily, but either way, I love Black White. Gen 6 came around. I really enjoyed Gen 6. Gen 6 definitely had its problems. Every gen does, where there's like an era where it's just shit. And Gen 6 is a bad era, was like really bad. And then
Which
it
era
gets
was that? The
like
Doug
the ORS,
Trio
like the,
Sableye
right before
stuff?
SM came out, yeah, right
Yeah.
around the same, like it was bad. And so at that point, I was like, eh. But I still love Gen 6, right? I had some of my best memories as Gen 6 as well as my breakout.
Mhm.
So I love Gen 6 too. And then Gen 7 came around, and I didn't really like Gen 7 at first. I thought it was too crazy. I liked it in 2017 fall, and then I liked it during not 2017 fall. I didn't like it in 2017 fall. 2017 summer around World Cup, it
Mhm.
was pretty fun. I think World Cup is cool because you see a lot of players, different types of players from different areas. You know what I mean? Because World Cup and shit, like they're not all on Smogon all the time, and the Smogon hive mind.
They come out of the woodworks just to play for
You see a
their,
lot of
yeah.
creative stuff, right? You see a lot of different types of playing and
And like
play.
you can kind of attribute certain styles in Pokemon to certain areas. Like
Exactly,
Italy
exactly.
always uses Seismitoad and stuff like that.
So you can see countries, trends, which I think is very cool. So
Yeah.
it's a little more creative.
Mhm.
2018. Sorry. So I like SM in 2017. I still like Gen 5 and Gen 6. Gen 5 is pretty consistent. I usually always love Gen 5. So really, to give you an answer, it's probably Gen 5 is my favorite overall. But I really loved Gen 7 from 2018 up until even now. Like, yeah, I'm bored of it because like fuck, the ladder sucks these days.
Yeah.
Because of rain and shit. Like the ladder's horrible. I hate
Mhm.
the ladder. But Gen 7 as a whole, yeah, I started really enjoying after Gen 8. So I'd say from Gen 8, no, sorry, not Gen 8, sorry, from fucking 2018 in the middle of that. So from when I played S Tour up until probably today, I really like Gen 7. And the one I hate the most right now is Aura SOU. I think Aura sucks right now.
Why?
Not that it sucks, I just don't enjoy playing it. Sorry.
Why not?
It's just, dude, the teams, I hate the teams right now, BKC. It's webs, then you'll see
Okay, no, okay,
webs.
I understand.
Like, dude, it's just not that fun.
Well, so wait, let me
Shit on Oras every time they play. Like,
wait.
the teams they play.
Hold that thought. We're gonna come back to it. So, am I to understand that when it's mostly like Keld Metagross offense and like the spiking teams, that's cool, right? With Gliscor.
Okay, I don't want to sound like a fucking scrub. Like, it's only cool when you use offense. Like,
No, I don't even mean that. Like I'm saying,
no,
like Keld Metagross and then like the Clef spiking teams.
yeah.
Like those were like the dominant ones.
Yeah, they're done. A lot of the teams are just kind of
You know, like general outplay
I don't
things,
like
balance.
playing them that much these days. But I mean, not to say that they're like all the teams. I really just hate the cheese, bro. Like,
Right.
the chance
So
the
wait, what
cheese
were you saying? I couldn't hear you about every time they play Oris, I didn't get who that was.
fucking West, bro. West.
Oh, right,
Sucks.
of course.
West. Stop this shit. You want a team, bro? I got you. I got Metagross teams. I got a lot of good teams, West. All you gotta do is know how to double switch, bro. You guys can't play this stall. Trust me. I got it for you. Just hit me up. I have Metagross teams. I got Lopunny teams. No more Weavile Chansey. No more. BKC, those teams suck, but they win every now and then, which is why they keep.
Well, that's the whole point. That in a best of one, then that's all you need. So
And I mean, I don't really hate West. I understand you're just using the team that can get the win. Like,
right.
I get it. That's nothing new. These teams have always existed. But that's just why I'm on what ORS is a little boring right now.
Right.
Plus, I always spam the same shit. I'm not very creative in ORS myself. I always use Calm Mind Club Metagross. Like, last year I had played 9 ORS games, tournament games in a row with Calm Mind Club plus Metagross.
Yeah. And
So,
I mean, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think
It's not bad.
I think it's fine. So pretty much when it's more that style of bulky offense, balance, semi-stall, that kind of is more geared around, let's say, playing the game traditionally, then that's when it's fine. And then when the Shuckles and Zatu start coming out, then you're just kind of like,
Shit
yeah.
comes out where you're forced in a certain like way to play.
Yeah, it's more about the team and less about the game itself. And I sympathize with that not being as pleasant, Because I mean, look, if I wanted to,
I'll take my loss.
I mean, I look at it like this. I mean, first of all, I'm not going to just say, fuck it, if you're going to bring this, then I'll take my loss, because that's not very competitive. But at the same time, if all I wanted to do was play competitive team building, I'd never sign up for a tournament,
Exactly.
So,
True. And I get it. I mean, it's always gonna exist. You want to win, of course. scrub like to say it's just about having fun. Winning isn't everything. Because
Yeah.
no, you play to win it, and that's bottom line. So
If it's really ruining the metagame, then it won't
then don't
exist in
play
the
it.
metagame. Yeah. So.
So whatever, it's fine. But yeah, Gen 7, Gen 6, Gen 5, my phase. As for the other four gens, I mean, I didn't grow up with them, or I didn't. I started with Gen 5, so that's just basically why I've been
No,
playing.
that's
Gen 4,
understandable.
I
Yeah.
don't mind. I don't even mind watching old gens, honestly, and I don't really mind playing them either. Like the old gen is kind of a meme. Gen 4 is actually kind of fun to play. I only play friendlies, obviously, but the only teams I use are a Specs Latias team I got from my boy Gary the Gengar, and a Weatherball Raikou Obama Snow team that I got from August. And those are my two favorite teams. I do pretty well with them, so I just play for fun. Actually, I don't like watching Gen 4, but I do like playing.
Well, do you like not like watching Gen 4 when it's random people throwing paralysis shit at each other, or
Yeah, I get. I mean, okay. It's wrong for me to say I just don't like the gen because if you see a good game in any gen, it's exciting, right?
right.
For the most part, yeah, I think you're right. A lot of times I like seeing offense versus offense, but yeah, a lot of the time I don't like seeing Clef Hippo. But that's true for every tier. But just in general, it's just
Would you say that it's like if it's like two really good players like playing well, then it's fine. But that kind of extends to every generation, doesn't
I
it?
can even appreciate a stall versus stall in TPP, right?
Right.
They're both
Well, I mean more like if you saw two scrubs smashing together nonsense in Oris, then it would also probably not be great.
exactly.
So
So it's just like I don't know, Gen 4. It's a fine gen and everything. It's just I don't know. I don't play it too much.
if it's not for you, it's not for you. There's nothing wrong
It's
with
just not
that.
for me, bro. I guess that's
Yeah,
the way to say it. I still like playing it. I just don't watch it too much.
that's fair.
Gen 3's same thing. I play it every now and then. I have like 8 teams in my builder.
I remember you had a phase where you really liked Gen 3.
I really liked it. I really liked it for a few months, and I still like it. I like watching it. That's how I
It's
feel about
it's a very pleasant
I like
gen.
watching
Yeah, it's balanced as hell.
it. It is pleasant. Yeah, it is pleasant. And the teams you use are pretty nice. Like they feel good in your hands. I feel like AEV is a tier where it's very hard to be really good at.
I think that's accurate. Yeah.
So I respect when people are very dominant in this tier.
Hmm.
Gen 2 OU. Gen 2 I kind of enjoy playing. I have a couple offenses from Lavos I use now and then. Like Raikou, Golem, Heracross type shit. Yeah. So those are pretty fun. I like playing them.
Uh huh.
I like watching GSC too. I have a pretty decent understanding of GSC. And then RBY I don't like playing, but I love watching RBY. My favorite old gen to watch recently.
Because it's a heart attack.
Yeah, but I also see myself now understanding the plays they have to make. And
Right,
stuff like that.
right.
And now, like, I feel like recently people have started double switching and playing like offensively in RBY. You know what I mean? Like, I
Yeah,
noticed
yeah.
that in Troller, because Troller used to really just like destroy his opponents in SPL, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, and I would watch him make double switches and stuff, and I'm like, how is this guy doing this? He doesn't even have stuff rock up, you know?
Right.
And I was like, my mind was fucking blown. This doesn't even have hazards up. He's doing this shit. What?
Yeah.
And so that put me onto RBY, and I started seeing, people start playing more offensively and stuff like that. And I enjoy watching RBY these days. It's cool. Like ABR versus Ojama last week, ABR played an amazing RBY game. And I was like, wow. Like I noticed that, and I was like, he really played that great. Like it's not just people going, oh, it's the same 6 months, Thunderwave, you know. And of course, even I like to meme around and say that shit, but it's
Right,
obviously not
right.
like that. So
All right.
I gotta respect RBY.
So, what would you say your favorite play style to use is? Like, what defines you as a player?
I like.
I mean, but I know you have to mix it up a little, but you have like, what would you say is your
I
go-to
don't
for
always
comfort
think-
wise?
I always use offense, right?
Yeah.
Not HO, but offense with a pivot or two.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean that's it, bro. I always use offense. I rarely use balance. Like.
Would you say there's much of a difference when like?
I would.
Well, I mean, more in the sense that think about that Magnezone Clefable team you used against Soulwind. Would you say that's offense or balance?
That's offense.
Really?
Bulky offense. It's bulky offense.
Okay, that's more what I mean. Because when yeah.
Because when I think of balance, I think of like true traditional balance picks, like Hippowdons and stuff.
Okay.
That team could have very certainly been balanced if I took a bulkier route.
Right.
Starmie and Hippo over Garchomp and Lottie, something like that, you know.
All right. So more of the bulky offense, which seems to be a recurring theme amongst good players because they can break defensive teams. They've got the big guns for that, but they've also got the defensive core to fall back on against opposing offense.
Sorry, 1 second.
Yep.
Okay, but yeah, bulky offense in general was always my favorite. You're right; it gives you the most room to outplay, and it's cool, right? It lets you really show off the Pokemon you want to.
Yeah.
That's basically it.
Alright.
Offense for the most part. I have used balance. I've even used stall. I very rarely use stall, as we know. I don't really play it too much. I think I'm pretty good at playing it, but I don't play it too much.
just because of that horrible feeling of when you. It's more matchup reliant than you would like.
Yeah, and when you lose with Saul, you look like such a loser. Like,
I mean, it's not that as for me, but it's more like, well, I couldn't even outplay my way back. You know?
no, dude, I feel bad because when I bring Stahl, I know I'm fishing, right?
Right, right.
The way I see it, right? I think I'm fishing for a matchup, right? And so then when I lose it, I just be like, man, I'm such a clown. Why not just bring a real team?
Yeah,
Especially when you're like, oh, if I just brought my real team, they would have had a good matchup. And
yeah. It's a horrible feeling.
like a clown.
I think modern stall is a lot like in like newer gens. Then stall becomes like weirder and weirder to build because it's not a consistent team as much, and so it really is more just shooting for certain matchups.
Exactly.
So,
But nonetheless, um,
but I mean, you'll bust out the occasional, like spike semi stall kind of thing.
in the finals of versus Solwyn, right? I used that bulky offense, and I used a pretty bulky offense in black white. But then in the SM game, I brought a true balance.
Right, 3 regens, Mega Zam.
3 regens, Torn was bulky. I had the Z-Trend and the Zam, but for the most part, it was a true balance. So I can switch it up when necessary.
But it's not like you're leading. It's not like you're going. Let's use an Oris example. It's not like you're going in a best of 3 from webs to hard stall to
Yeah, see,
something else
Oris
stupid.
teams are a lot more safer. Like, I always have the safe pivot, like a clef and all that stuff. Because in ORS, that's kind of necessary. But in SM, I'll go.
Well, SM is kind of like I'm not going to say a free for all because I think Sun and Moon is a very good metagame, but it's you can definitely use whatever you want.
Yes, exactly. You can use whatever you want and get results, and that is a big thing with SM, which is why offense in SM is always a little bit more crazier, but it'll end up working out.
I guess that leads into the next question, which is what are your thoughts on the current SM metagame?
It's all right. I like watching it. I mean, ladder sucks, but tournament does not suck, and it hasn't sucked this year, in my opinion. I think this last 6 months have been great for SM. I think the metagame has changed a lot. I think there have been a ton of new Pokemon being introduced to the meta and looking good.
What changes exactly are we referring to?
I just think a lot of Pokemon are truly being recognized that people were just like, oh, they're ass. Like, we're seeing stuff like Seismitoad. Again, my favorites, Komodo, has been getting usage a lot. Besides that, Mamoswine, for example, rose up. People are just starting to, like, toy around with different sets. And I like it. People are really starting to understand, like, oh, wow, you really can't use anything. And so, yeah, it's just, in general, people are starting to use different stuff. Like, Bengay, for example, he gave Lax that Breloom team, that Mamoswine team, and all those teams, they are capable of performing. And it's good to see that you can bring that in even a tiebreaker and perform. So it's just nice. Yeah, I'm happy that people are really showing that you can win with whatever as long as you play good and the rest of your team is decent.
I like that. I mean, you're always going to need your staples, but I think Victini is a great example of a Pokemon that it covers dangerous Pokemon and responds with offense, and it's pretty creative. So. Yeah, I think so. Would you say overall good? Anything that needs to be changed, or
I think Magearna's broken.
Yeah, that's a pretty good opinion. I think.
I do think Magearna's broken and should be banned.
Yeah.
I think it's very unhealthy. I know it beats a lot defensively, so it would probably make the meta kind of whack. But offensively, it's so broken to me. Like, it's not even a
I
question.
feel like it's kind of a Zygarde situation where I mean, sure it checks.
Even more.
I mean, in the sense that it checks some things like Lele and Zam, but I mean, a lot of teams without Magearna handle those just fine. So.
Yeah, you're right. You don't need that Mamba for it.
Like the defensive set is really nice. I will say that, but
But
what's
it's not
the price?
for the meta. Other Pokemon can do what it does,
So
defensively at least.
Magearna, anything else?
No. I mean, as for my thoughts on the metagame, I think Tornadus is really annoying. I hate running into it. Lame.
Torn is so obnoxious. Yeah.
Lame. That's it. Other than that, I'm fine. Those are just the most annoying styles for me. Metachamp, Torn, and Rain are the most annoying. But other than that, meta's great.
Cool. What are some overrated Pokemon in the current metagame?
Let me think. Back in SPL, I thought Pex was extremely overrated, if not bad. I only used one Pex, and I used Feeny and other water types majority. But nowadays, I think Pex is good again. But back then, I thought it was so overrated and bad. I think Megaladios is pretty bad because I think Calm Minds is decent, but even then, I don't like matchup fishing versus like weatherless AV Magearna teams, especially when people can be running T-Tars and stuff like that. It's just not the pick for me. I understand that it like more often than not, it does get a pretty decent matchup because people love running these Tornadus Tango offensive teams. So that's why I only really like Calm Mind. I think T-Wave and Defog sets and all that stuff are bad, but the Calm Mind Lottie I think is good.
Okay.
What else is overrated? Um,
Have you come around on Pex?
Tangrowth. I think Helmet Tang is a little overrated too.
Really?
Not that Tangrowth is bad. Tangrowth is an amazing Pokemon, and I've used it a ton. AV is beautiful. Even Helmet's beautiful. But I think
Even without Zygarde, it's interesting how AV is still a big thing.
yeah, I think people are getting comfortable with Tangrowth. They think it's so easy to throw on a team, and it's so easy because it has regen, etc., and they fuck themselves over when they play because they play a more passive game. Like seriously.
It is easy to, go the safe route and
Yeah,
slap Tangrowth on and
like Tangrowth is so because Tangrowth is an incredible mon. But I think people get lazy because I recognize this myself when I started using AV Tangrowth Sands and Helmet Tangrowth Sands, and I was like, I play kind of passive because I just have regen and Tangrowth, and I think like it's gonna work. But then I end up losing to Greninja and stuff like that. So I think Tangrowth is good, but I don't know. It's like I need to calm down on the Tangrowth. I don't think it's like the goat. It's good, but
sure.
I think it just tricks people into playing differently.
What about have you come around on Toxapex? Because in things like live smoke and tours, then I see teams like with Toxapex just getting almost free wins
Yeah.
more than anything else.
Patch is still great. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's still solid. I've been using it a lot of my lives actually. Like it's always like on a good amount of my teams. It's like the fifth month because it lets you, or the sixth month because it lets you use the other shit. Yeah, it's good. I don't think it's overrated. Like I think it's just decent. Like it's not too crazy. Offense can still deal with Pex pretty well, but it's good versus those balanced teams that can't kill it. It can be really good with knockoff, and toxic, and all that. I think Zam is actually not that good right now. Just kidding. Mega Zam is the best BKC. Do you know
That was a really weird sentence to say.
Bro, do you know what I mean?
Sorry?
So there's a meme on my channel where I say that Mega Zam 6-0s all teams.
I think I've seen it in your comments once in a while. Like somebody will be like nobody blank and then Blunder Megazam 6-0's this shit.
6-0 by Mega Zam, yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
No, Megazam's amazing.
Yeah, I think Zam's awesome. I think Zam's still awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, overrated. I don't know. I think it's pretty decent.
All right. Well, now for the fun part. What's underrated in the current metagame? Throw every Como O and its likeness at me. And why it's underrated.
I want to just say like Heat Mons. I want to see ones that are truly like not getting the respect.
Something that you would actually bring to a serious tournament.
That you should bring out.
Yes.
Use Scizor more. Scizor should be used more.
Why?
Yeah, I know it's OU. It's just really good defensively. It beats all of these teams. All these weatherless offense. Scizor, Tornadus. Sorry, not Scizor. Tangrowth, Tornadus, Greninja, Medicham type builds. They get messed up. It's one of the few Pokemon that beats Kartana, and that thing is like nearly broken.
Right.
Checks Zam, checks Magearna. So the typing is good. Yeah, Scizor's typing is just really nice, and I get a lot of mileage out of SD knockoff Bullet Punch. The one time I used it, SPL was good. Every time I use my ladder, it's good. I think it just needs more use. I think people reject that Mega because they want the stronger ones, but Scizor always will fully wall like two of your mons on a team.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you just look at most of your SM teams, Scizor will usually wall two of them like completely.
And Magnezone, would you ever consider U-turn for it?
Sorry, yeah. Magnezone is at a very high point in the metagame.
Because of Mawile and Celesteela.
Oh wow, yeah, so that is very true. Yeah, I remember John ran Superpower Scizor with Max Speed.
Yeah, he had the knockoff Pharaoh. So that's a great setup. But and so if you can bypass that, and I mean you also knocked the stuffing out of Heatran on the Switch, so.
So yeah, that's a cool tech as well. Other underrated mons, I'll tell you what mon I used to hate on, but now I think it's okay. Gastro used to hate it.
Really?
Now I think it's okay. I don't think it's good, but I think it has its place.
What does it do exactly? Block Volt Switches really nicely?
Yeah, I guess it's nice, and I guess it does. Everyone loves Rotom Wash these days, so it's nice in that sense. It's also good for Gren if you don't get flinched. It's good for AV Mag. I don't know. It's nice. Like it does the same thing it's always done, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I guess nowadays people use. Oh, it's good against rain too. It is really nice against rain. Especially when you pair it with Bulu, because then you're able to wall Swampert with Gastrodon, which is insane.
That is really, really nice.
Yeah, that's insane, right?
You know, wouldn't you worry? Would you fit it with Magnezone so you're not getting Ferrothorned all over the place?
I have a team. Let me look. What did I have? Okay, I can't find it. But it was like a balance. Like I had Zapdos and shit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really remember, but yeah, I was able to use that core. I remember the first person to show me that core was John, because I brought Rain versus him in some Josh IPL tournament, and he had Gastro Bulu, and I couldn't break it with her.
I remember one of your most famous quotes that I thought was really funny was these Jajas have problems.
Josh, oh my god,
That
that's
was
how you
funny.
drop Blunder with something else.
Yeah.
I was 14 on something else. Other underrated, Hydreigon is amazing. Specs though, I don't like Z. Specs is
Really?
really good.
Specs
Specs is
Hydreigon.
really good, dude. It's amazing. I run Modest because I like power.
Well, of course, of course.
It's underrated, bro. Modest Specs Dark Pulse destroys Pex, destroys Celis, easy to kill.
Oh, is it like against those teams that barely hang on against pre Ash Greninja and
Yeah.
Hydreigon? You're just like,
Bro, this mon comes with the added bonus of being able to kill Tangrowths,
mm.
which is pretty nice. The typing and defenses are pretty good. You get Flash Cannon as well.
checks other Greninja. Checks other Greninja.
Dude, it's underrated, and I don't like Z Dark because
Really?
it's just because you drop your Z and now you're wall by stuff like Tangrowth. Yeah, you can roost on it, but whatever. They're gonna go to Tornadus, and you're gonna be wall by Tornadus too. They're gonna Hurricane to a KO you, stuff like that. Like it's just too weak. But Specs, I really find I get a lot of good potential out of. No Tapus except for Feeny can switch into you, which is also pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Coco
Well, even Feeny, like with Rocks up, if you flash cannon, that's gonna do a good amount.
Cannon does like 35, 40. Yeah, the moves are great, bro. Resist Sucker Punch, Aqua Jet, Water Shuriken, Natural Bulk is good. Hydreigon Specs is like really good. One of my favorites.
That is interesting.
Yeah, I really think everyone should try that one out because I always get such insane potential out of it. I remember CTC made a team and I had Joe use it in Snake and he won pretty nice in OU with it.
Mm.
I never got a chance to use it in SM, but I would have liked to at one point. What else?
Give me one more.
Regular is actually kind of decent.
Which one?
Slowbro regular.
Really?
Yeah, it's like okay.
I thought that was mostly a Zygarde thing.
It's like it's not that good. But then you have my favorites: Komodo, Glalie, Sharpedo, all my boys. Cardon is amazing too.
Oh, Crawdon's the worst.
Thunderous T is really good as well.
Why Thunderous T over regular Thunderous?
Just the power is better. Z fighting is able to actually OHKO stuff like Ferrothorn, which is nice.
Isn't the speed pretty relevant?
Voltorb is really good too, for the Magnezones and everything.
I suppose, yeah. Is the speed ever a factor against like Megaladios?
I guess it could be.
And Kartana too.
Attack. Yeah, I guess Kartana too. It could be annoying, but I ran this with Weavile, so a lot of these weren't as bad.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Thunderous T is underrated, and then yeah, I guess that's about it. Nothing else I really feel too strongly about. Oh, Dragonite Z move is okay. I've been testing him a little bit.
Nice.
Oh, Blacephalon's really good too.
Blacephalon, really?
Yeah, I'm kind of past my.
Isn't Mega Tyranitar really common and good? And
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like T-Tar is slowly kind of rising up, but even then, I feel like if you do not play T-Tar and you have a Bluecef BKC, the matchup is immediately good.
really?
Like literally, like every matchup without a T-Tar is pretty good for the Bluecef. Well, think about it. The typing in general is unbeatable.
Right.
Well, it's unfallable. So yeah, you play your occasional chance, it's bad, but if you get switcheroo, you're fucked. But yeah, I think if you don't play T-Tar, or I guess like Weavile, too, you're usually gonna get a lot of. I wanted to use Blacephalon in the tiebreak, but I pussied out, and it would have had a. I wanted to use it versus Empo, but I pussied out, and he brought a team that was quite weak to it, so I regret that looking back. But yeah, Blecep is not a bad pick at all. It's just a tough Pokemon to use, obviously, right? Because Rock's weak, frail.
Sure.
It has all the characteristics of a Pokemon that you wouldn't want to bring, but I like it.
All right. Next question. Favorite teams ever? We're gonna go with one that you've made and one that someone else has made. In any of the 5 through 7 gens of your choosing. So first year team that you've made.
Team I ever made.
Gens 5 through 7.
I guess Sableye Talon, even though CTC made most of it, I like fine-tuned the shit the way I wanted to, and I also am the one that made it Latios instead of Zam, but CTC is more so the creator. But either way, that's like my favorite one that I guess someone else made. Yeah, I'll give it to CTC because it's more his team. That's my favorite someone else made, and I had such insane success with it too. And as for one I made, so one that I actually made by myself, well, I don't really build too much. Like most of my good teams are like edits, like the Metacham team. But probably the one I used versus Ojama and Smoke on Tour.
Which one was that?
I had used Metacham and SM. It was Metacham, Coco, Gliscor, Tangrowth, Xelis, Steelix, Greninja. And the Gliscor was Stealth Rock U-turn. And I had made that setup at that point, and then it started being used a lot in World Cup afterwards.
What was the idea behind Stealth Rock U-turn on Gliscor?
I'll tell you, I wanted to use a rocker that could keep momentum and was not weak to Heatran.
Oh, so it couldn't be
Landers.
Landorus.
It couldn't be Landers. It literally couldn't be Landers, and I don't like Garchomp, so Gliscor.
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw all the French use this exact team with Garchomp over Gliscor, which still works, but I liked Gliscor a lot at the time. Like, it was
Mm-hmm.
cool. So I was just running the enough speed to outspeed Tran and base 80. I think at 286. Stealth Rock U-turn Earthquake, Electrum Coco, T-Bolt U-turn Bruce Default. Didn't even have Ice, so I was running a lot of cool sets. And then I had Medicham, of course, and yeah, I really like that team. It's not that good. I mean, it looks good on paper, but it's weak to like RY and shit.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty weak to Grand too.
I mean, so are a lot of things, but
Yeah,
um,
but it's one of those teams you can outplay. But I love that team. Built it all by myself, and I enjoy it. And I got a win with it, right?
good feeling.
Like
Got an important win with it. So, all right, here's a big question. What is important to you in terms of skill in Pokemon? Like, what do you value, and what would you consider skill? Or rather, what skills do you value as most important?
Okay. Well, number one is of course consistency, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anyone can have a high peak. Well, that I don't want to say that because it's not like everyone can just play a superstar game and then it's like, oh yeah, anyone can do that. That's not true.
Not even superstar game, but just like win one game.
Yeah, you can't just win one game and then be all that.
Or even just have one good tournament.
Yeah, exactly. Even one good tournament's not enough. And you'll see that. You'll see that people will have one good tournament and they're done. They're done. You won't see any shine again. And it's like, okay, well, I guess that's that. Like, because this is a big deal. It's something that's underrated. That's why someone going like 8-1 one time and then doing average for the rest of the time doesn't matter as opposed to me someone going 6-3 every season. Like people like Flanny McTeeny are pretty slept on. I mean, obviously he's not too around. Like he doesn't post a lot, but he's a good underrated player. I'd say always just very consistently in tournament, and you don't hear his name a lot. People go top OU players. Maybe he doesn't play as much these days, but I remember a couple years ago, 2017, 2016, he was putting up good records, man. He had 6 3s, 7 2s, very often in his team tournaments. So I remember back then that was like an underrated player to me. I was like, I don't think he's getting the respect he deserves. Like, he's good. So
Consistency is the first thing.
consistency's number one,
Mm.
and then yeah, gameplay, team building definitely matters to me. But as someone who doesn't really build and just loves to play and all that stuff, playing obviously matters to me a lot. And yeah, I'll be honest, I like watching a flashy player. I like watching someone who will double switch off the rip. I like big plays. I like an exciting game. That's it. As a spectator, I love an exciting game.
Well, as a spectator is something else, like
Okay.
in terms of like competition, then sure, I'd agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
I get what you mean.
Yeah, but like as a competitor, then anything that's good. But if I'm just in it for what the hell, entertain me. Like, let's say the Pokemon version of an Avengers movie, then you're just gonna be like, give me the big explosions, the big predictions, whatever. So
Even in the way I play, I try
yeah,
to only use Pokemon that are fun to me. For the most
right.
part, I feel like I do bring pretty fun teams. I don't bring like
Mm-hmm.
boring shit for the most part because I don't even enjoy playing games. So yeah, a big thing to me. Well, number one is consistency, and then I like seeing some good playing, especially in today's like competitive climate in Gens 5 through 7. And I don't know if it's true for 1 through 4, but I can say in Gen 5 through 7, you don't even need to build your own teams anymore because everyone just steals and shares these days, and everyone just uses the same teams.
Yeah.
It didn't used to be like that, and like that's fine. And I'm not gonna say I have nothing to say about it. I only use other people's teams, right? And I remember back in the day, 2016. I remember someone was like, "Yo, just do what Blunder does. He always just uses other people's teams, and people know him, but like they're still good." And that's what I was known for. Like I used like teams people knew, but they're good, sturdy teams, right? But now everybody does it. Everybody does it. Because like how many times have you seen someone use the Polytoad Excadrill Tornadus team? Remember that team?
The Excadrill one?
Yup.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yep. 1,000,000%.
Yeah, I mean, me personally, I value it differently because I always valued, or I come from an era, I guess, where being able to make your own team. I mean, not religiously, of course. That'd just be stupid. And I would even say it's anti-competitive to only use your own teams, because then people know that there's
It's your own knowledge. It's your own skill.
Well, I mean, anti-competitive in the sense that people know always that you're not going to be bringing, some other team. But so a good mix I think is necessary. But I like when you think about how much of a factor matchup plays. then if someone else does that work for you entirely, then that's something I generally kind of, I don't know, not necessarily have a problem with. I guess the thing I more have a problem with is when someone hands someone else a team and he's like, all right, go use this. And then the other guy coasts off the other guy's work. Like, if you're involved in it and you're like,
Yeah, like
I don't know about this team.
I'm also against big group discords.
Mm,
I know people be doing that. Like I said, I'm not gonna act like I play I prep on myself alone. SPL.
I don't think anyone does, honestly.
Well, yeah. No one's completely alone. The SPL. I mean, the Smoke on Tour I won. I worked closely with you.
Mm,
Remember, Black White. I worked closely with you, and I worked closely with ABR and Gen 7. So again, it's not. It's never truly individual.
well, the key thing in that is that you worked with. It's not just, hey, give me a team.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not like I
Big,
just
big
told
difference.
it's not like I just told you like give me something to win, right? Like
Yeah.
I really worked with you because I was like, look, I want to do this, test it, etc., etc. Like it was legit.
Yeah.
But yeah, like nowadays I hear like I got like a DM from someone, hey, can you add me to the Grand Slam, your Grand Slam Discord? I'm like, what are you talking about? It's like, don't you have a Discord where they're all passing teams and stuff? I'm like, no, bro. Like, I don't like. But I remember back then when I used to play Slam, like, yeah, that was a thing, like, you know.
Mm, mm.
So, and I get it. It needs to be like it's easier, less time consuming, blah blah blah. I don't have a problem with it that much, but it can get frustrating when you just keep seeing the same ass team over and over again.
Mm.
Uh,
Well, when other people benefit so easily from others' work,
hard
it's
work. Yeah,
it.
you're right. You're right. Like sometimes it can be so frustrating just lose to someone who's just like whatever, and then it's like, oh man, all he did was just use this like good ass team, blah blah blah. Like, you know.
Yeah, it's frustrating, especially when you build a team that's actually good, and you're like, well, I want to use this, and then someone's like, dude, you always just spam the same team because you want free wins, and you're like, where did you get that idea from? It's disheartening, but yeah. So I guess to bring it back to the question, then you would say playing is obviously the most important, but team building, or not even necessarily team building, but being aware or being involved in the process of the team, I guess you would say.
Just knowing the ins and outs of team building. Look, I don't build my own teams, but if I didn't have someone to build my teams for me, I wouldn't drown. I would know how to put together a good team.
Right,
Like,
right.
it's easy. I know what's good in the metagame. I can predict every set still at team preview and stuff like that. Like,
And
I've played so much, so I have a deep understanding. But when it comes to like the people who are building teams that will change the metagame and progress it,
mhm,
that is important. And I do not take part in that very often. So I have a respect for it.
right.
Most definitely.
So, all right, I think that's good. But there's also the fact that some people will just grab a team and like hardly know any of the sets on it, and just not know how and then they'll do stuff like lose to a certain threat because they played wrong and be like, dude, this team you gave me loses to XYZ threat. It's like, no, it doesn't. But
Bro, how are you gonna tell me that when everyone wins with this team? Like, you know what? Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. And then it's like, oh,
it's like, well, use your own team if it's
like,
so.
someone loses and goes, can't believe they made me use this team. Can't believe they gave me this team. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Oh God, that gets me so mad.
I guess that also goes back to the whole reputation is everything in this era of extreme shit talking. So you got to make sure everyone knows it's not your fault, and obviously that doesn't actually work, but it's why it happens.
The only way to get out of Smoke on alive is just to win. That's the only way.
Yeah.
It's the only. You just have to win. If you lose, bro, you can't make any excuses. You just have to win. That's
Yeah. I mean, if you don't have a need to shit talk, then it shouldn't matter too much. But if you like partaking in that shit, then
like me and Lavo Spawn, we can never take a day off. That's just the lifestyle.
right.
That's it, unfortunately. But you're right. If you're a good guy, you're never either. But BKC, that's not the case. Look at my man John. Does he shit talk? No. But he still got haters. Like,
Yeah, that one's weird. I don't understand that. John never says a word in public, or a brofist for people who don't know him that well.
you can even break a man like that. That is so good and composed, but you can still break a man like that because people love to talk.
It's weird. Like I don't get that. Like anyway, all right. Moving on. This one's gonna make you think a little more. I'm glad we covered that one because I think actually deducing what skill is like. I mean, there's also skill in things like picking the right team, like, and then you kind of go, oh, well, how far does it go? Like, if you cheese, then does that count? What are your thoughts on that? I guess before we move on, like,
Can you restate the question?
yeah, that wasn't phrased very well. Okay, so when someone brings, let's say, Shuckle, Webs, and Oris, and
Okay.
the other guys is just totally helpless, then how would you break that down in terms of skill
Well,
for
that's
both
something
sides?
exactly like that happened to me. In SPL 8, I played versus Poet, and
Mm-hmm.
one of my best buddies, a sitter, and he brought Webb's HO versus me, that NJMP team with Mimikyu Zygarde. I just brought a classic like Keldeo offense and SM. I got smoked, and I was mad. I wasn't mad at him, but like of course I was mad. I couldn't do anything. My whole team was grounded. He got up a web and he killed everything with pincer, and I was like, come on, like yeah, I was like annoyed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so like, what are you asking? Like, how I felt about that game, or
Well,
like,
not necessarily. It's like, what kind of skill do you think is going on in there? Because that style of team
oh
is just
yeah,
about.
okay,
Because that style of team is never really consistent. You know, the kind of Webs thing.
okay. Well, the point of those teams is that the structure is laid out for you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there are literally
So
like
it
an
really
instructional
plays
guide.
itself.
Yes, it's literally an instructional guide. Lead off with the Mon with focus set. Click rocks if this is the lead. Click attack if this is the lead. And click taunt if this is the lead. Whatever. Like, it's and that's been around forever. So these HO teams, like what Bengay uses,
Mm-hmm.
it depends because some of Benji's teams do take skill. Like
Right.
the team he used versus I'm So Sorry with the trick and all that stuff. I don't know if you remember.
The
But it's like,
Cresselia and yeah, I remember.
yeah,
Yeah.
that team you cannot just be a dumbass and use it because I'm So Sorry used one of Bengay's meme teams and he got messed up.
Oh, that's I hate that. Using someone's own team against them is
Maybe
the
it wasn't him.
worst.
Maybe it wasn't him. But
Oh,
think about all the times you see people use Ben's teams. What
right,
happens?
right.
They get smoked. They don't know what they're doing. So there are some types of cheese where you do need to have some kind of understanding.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of the cheeses, yeah, like it's not really that
The ones that
hard
play
of a learning curve.
themselves.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's not really that hard of a learning curve either, bro. Like just don't use
So
it.
it's really meant to be kind of like an equalizer. It's like, well, this guy's better than me, but he can't really handle this.
Yes,
So,
it is an equalizer. It is. That is what it's used as.
so if you build the team, you would say it's more of and you would say it's more attributed to the guy who built the team to get those free wins because we all want free wins, and
If I lost, if like look, I'll sound salty, but if I lost to some Bengay stall and my opponent just sat there and won off the matchup, I would probably be like, whatever. Like, yeah, I guess you won, but like, great, it was the Bengay team that just did it for you. Like, you didn't have to work.
exactly, yeah.
That's how I would feel. That's how I 100% feel.
So I guess in terms of stuff like that, then it's more if like Ben Gay built the team himself, then it's like, well, good job, man. You made another really hard to beat team. But with
He's a king at making.
but if someone else, just kind of leached off him, and he's like, well, I guess this will work. And I mean, then it's a really hard question because there's skill in picking the right team, like, but I don't know. It's really hard to quantify.
Pissed off people like that too. Like I used ABR's teams versus him in tournament. I used CBD's team versus
That's
him in
the
tournament.
that's so horrible.
I know that's your biggest pet peeve.
Oh, it is.
That's my favorite, bro. I go out of my way to do it, bro. It's
I mean, I guess competitively, it's a good move because you might tilt them right off the bat.
you might tell them, they might think you changed something, and it's exciting.
I don't know if it's worse when someone uses my own teams on me if they know it or not. Honestly,
Like, would you be madder if they had the same mods but the sets were wrong? I bet you would.
well, then I guess if it's a team that looks standard, then it's the possibility that it's not actually mine. But yeah, probably. And
They stole it. What if they stole it and the sets are just whack? I'd be so outraged.
honest,
So mad.
I mean, they'd probably make it worse. So I guess that's a net
Yeah,
good
they
thing.
would. But I'd be mad.
Yeah, I guess. All right, so for the whole skill thing, then I guess it's a hard thing to quantify, but I think that was good.
Okay, so team building and playing, obviously two most important. But where the balance is, they're both pretty valuable.
Yeah, and they fluctuate in terms of what's actually being brought. So,
True, true.
yeah. All right, so
About the other.
yeah, top 5 best, and I guess it's a shame that some people are able to take the shortcut because it makes you feel like, well, why am I bothering working so hard when I don't need to, and this idiot who doesn't need to?
Even I have had thoughts like that, right?
Yeah.
I go to the team and I'm like, why am I doing this? I'm gonna just DM CTC ABR and like be like, yo, you got anything? And if they have it, they are gonna have it, and I'm good. Or I'll hit up Ben or something. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and then I just think, like, why do I gotta work? These guys just have it, and it's laziness, but yeah.
I mean, it's for me. It's not that other people are gonna do the work for me. It, I mean, that's true that you very easily can get by like that in this era, but I think it's more. disheartening seeing other people who never build teams in their lives and just uh, fly off the work of others, and they succeed with it, and they never even bother trying, and it's like, well, what's the point then? I've so, but yeah, that's a whole video to itself almost. All right, so we got to get out of here before I get dragged back in. This is gonna be a hard one. Top 5 best competitive Pokemon memories. I know 2 you're probably gonna list, and probably 3, but
Oh shit.
yeah.
Okay, so
This could be anything. This could be laddering, early XY. This could be whatever.
damn. Okay. Okay, 2013, the whole summer
Mm-hmm.
was the most fun I had playing Pokemon. It was IDM days on Skype, all that stuff. CTC, Hugo,
Mm-hmm.
Moe, Case Victory, blah blah blah. All my buddies. Weepone, PK, Chimp, everywhere. It was so fun time. I used to be in call all the time over the summer, playing on PO. I didn't even play on Smogon at this point. Didn't talk on there or anything. So that's probably number one. Because all of my buddies at that point quit around 2014, right? That's the saddest thing for me in Pokemon to this day is that none of my buddies from IDM ever got to see me really become like one of the best players. You know?
Well, I mean, Hugo came back, and so did
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Probs. Yeah.
Yeah, but it sucks that a majority had quit, right? Like I wish
Right.
I had been hot when they actually cared. You know?
Yeah.
Whatever.
No, I know
You
the
know?
feeling.
Yeah. So, but definitely that 2013 pre-Smogon was great. 2014 competitive Pokemon. So I'm not even gonna really talk about YouTube because this is more of my competitive. 2014. Was there any top 5 moment that I really enjoyed? I played NUPL and my team was Case, Weepone, Soul Gazer, Afro Smash, Fuga, all my buddies, Chipak. So that was pretty fun. It was like a low stakes tournament, but I really enjoyed that tournament at the time because it was right after the SPL bust. And it was nice that I could play a tournament that had less, big stakes, and I still was doing great in it, even if it was like an NUPL. And I was with my friends, so that was pretty fun. So I guess I could put that in there if it's just like a small thing. 2015, any big memory that was amazing. Hita Fajita I have to put in because it changed my view on competitive Pokemon to some degree. So creation of Hita Fajita is very important to me. Yeah, had a lot more fun playing Pokemon from there. Winning the trophy is up there as well, obviously. I have to put that in there. I'm just going to say it now.
Mm-hmm.
Because 2017 was my least fun year playing Pokemon. I remember that 2017, I really didn't really enjoy Pokemon at any point throughout the year because I was very trophy hungry at that time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it can kind of really burn you out when you're instead of having fun, you're really focused on the success itself.
All I care about is winning.
Like you ever see Whiplash?
Yes, I have.
Yeah,
Like,
it's like a less extreme. Well, I don't know about less extreme, but it's like Whiplash.
it's like you doing that on yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how I felt. But 2017 was bad because I was trophy chasing. But 2018, the win up there is probably top 2, 3 memory.
Mm-hmm.
Just finally getting it done, and then SPL 10 is up there as well. SPL 10 probably could have been tied for the best if we won, but it's still up there.
I mean, journey
The
over
journey,
destination, right?
yeah,
So.
yeah, journey over destination 100%. So blast. I felt the same way with the SPL. We lost the finals before too. Blast. So yeah, they're all usually tournaments that are my favorite, but those types of experiences are always great.
All right. What would you change on Smogon if you could? I'm not just talking tier wise, although that can obviously be it, but I'm talking cash tournaments.
I would remove the ability to talk in the lobby during tournament games, and I would remove the like system on Smogon. I think all those 3 things gotta go. I really think that we should not be allowed to talk in the lobby during Smogon Tour when a game is going on. I just don't think that should be allowed. Which, again, I don't know. That's an unpopular opinion, right? And I just think you can talk in other places. I don't think there's the need for a Smogon Tour lobby when
Sure.
games are happening.
Sure.
I just don't think there's a reason. You can talk on Discord. Like when people are playing in a.
I mean, people say that Discord killed forums, so.
Yeah. So look, this isn't a sport, right? It's a competitive thing. It's not a real sport. But like when people are playing in a sport, there are fans and blah blah. People talking, but you don't hear what they're saying. This is annoying when you see people flat tagging you, writing all these big caps, show blah blah blah. I'm not saying it gets to me. I'm past that stage, but it's toxic.
No, it's obnoxious.
I'm not
yeah.
saying I
Well,
don't participate.
it's
I do.
well, you have to like exit the lobby pretty much.
So I'm saying we should just get rid of that.
Yeah.
I don't see the point of it.
I think it's a good idea too.
Yeah, I don't see the point.
But that
One thing
it's
I smoke on.
yeah.
I don't know, man. Like I'm pretty removed from smoke on lately, or I try to be more
Wait,
removed.
what was the
Like,
first thing you said? Get rid of the smog towards Discord?
yeah, I don't like the smoke towards
Yeah,
Discord.
well,
I
I
hate.
I think it's interesting how that the smog towards lobby and the like system on Smogan are all related to this system of shit talking, and I hate this
Yeah,
phrase,
it's
but
such.
I hate this phrase, but it's called clout chasing, where it's pretty much just instead of winning and moving up in the Smogan hierarchy that way, which
Yeah,
would
it's
seem
more
fair. Then
about
it's more about shit talking and bringing others down, you
yeah,
know.
it's getting to be an obnoxious point, especially when it's a bunch of like just kids. Also, the site is getting younger, which is why I'm starting to dislike it more. I know I said
Oh,
that
I
before,
know the
man,
feeling.
but now we're playing against like 17-year-olds and they all suck. No
Oh,
offense, kids, you're trash. And it's just like, it's just I don't
well,
know.
I think it comes with. I mean,
The
it's not
environment
just a
is
Smogan thing because I went to a Fourth of July party with at a friend of my friend's a couple days ago, and his 18 his he's our age, 23, and his younger brother is like 18, and these kids are shitty. Oh my god, I hate them. No offense to any of my younger viewers.
I'm 20. You're what? 21, 22?
I'm 23. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, so we're like the same age, right?
Yeah.
But it feels like kids who are 18 and 17, even though they're only 2 or 3 years younger than me, they feel so much different.
Maybe it's just our perspective, and kids were always this shitty. But I don't know. I think things have changed with smartphones being everywhere from such a young age now, and things like that. I don't know. This is a topic for a different video, probably not related to Pokemon, but I don't know. Maybe I can blame Fortnite.
Like system is unnecessary.
Yeah,
Really.
yeah.
At least it's unnecessary.
Not smoking.
Yeah, I mean, I understand why it could be healthy, but again, it's not used healthily.
Yeah.
It's used so people will meme more. And I hate memes in the tournament thread. Yeah, they can be funny
Mm.
most of the time, but most of the time, I just want to see you clock in 1 GG and clock out. Yeah, it's funny to me, blah blah blah, and that should be there. I don't want to fucking like completely like stone cold culture where it's just like one sign off.
Fun police and shit. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be like that, but let's get the game about competition again.
It's less about the game and more about being
Let's
popular.
get the game about competition again.
Yeah.
Like that's what I care about.
Yeah, I think I first noticed that it was really starting to get bad when one of the guys who doesn't play Pokemon was like watches the tournament for him. He's like, nothing ever happens here anymore. It's just drama and clicks. No one actually cares about who's good. It's weird, which is obviously an exaggeration and not entirely true, but
Because
there's too much emphasis on it.
saying this guy is good, someone's gonna pop out and say bad immediately. That's
Yeah.
the immediate reaction now when someone says this guy's good. There's gonna be an immediate reaction. No, he's ass.
Yeah,
No matter what.
I don't know. This is more of a sociological thing, I
It's
guess.
just part of the culture, the climate. I don't know. I'm not trying to blame anyone either, and I'm not gonna say I don't talk shit. I talk so much shit. So I'm part of the problem. But it's just how it is right now.
Yeah, this is more of a maybe this will be my thesis, but group mentality and such.
The way I see it is I don't go after like innocent people. I mean, I also am not like really trying to hurt feelings all the time.
Right. I mean, look, there's if it's not a huge game, like if it's just like round 2 of a live tour, like early in the season, it's like, oh man, that guy went to Zapdos, what a fucking idiot. But
Okay, the way I see it is if you sign up for a tournament and you are playing in these tournaments, I can say like, oh yeah, you played like shit, like oh yeah, he's ass, like not he's ass, but like, you know what I mean? Like when you sign up for these tournaments and you playing on S2 ever watching, yeah, bro, it's gonna happen. Like I'm gonna be like, yo, you choked, like oh shit, like you know, like it's gonna happen. If you sign up for these tournaments, you put yourself at a risk of getting roasted for losing. That's it.
right.
It's annoying when someone who's trash. Like there was a post in that oh my god, that horrible
Smoking tour, yeah, that was horrible.
Yes, and there was a post. Oh my god, and it was like, just because you're not a chef doesn't mean you can't tell the food tastes like shit. And I was so mad, and it had so many likes, and it was like, you are just 100 bad players liking this message. No, that is the case. You guys are not good enough to understand what went on that game to that kind of degree. You've never even been in that position, and you think that you can just say all this stuff. That was disgusting. That post triggered me so bad because
It's a problem, I think.
and so many people were agreeing, like, oh yeah, I mean, we never played. We're horrible at this game.
It's really easy to be a sideline or what's the term? It's really easy to be an armchair quarterback is the problem.
So easy. And so seeing so many scrubs saying like, yeah, like it's so easy. We knew he choked.
Like I don't know if there should be like obviously you should I guess know your place a little. And I know that sounds elitist and horrible, but at the same time
but like, okay, there's a difference between knowing your place and just stop talking shit. If you're a trash say that top tier player privilege isn't a thing. The
Mhm.
stuff Lavo Spawn says, for example, he be getting away with stuff. You have gotten away with stuff. I've gotten away with stuff. Like,
Mhm.
and I'm not gonna say it doesn't exist. But in general, like, don't sign up on the site and come out booming. Like,
I think if you dish it, you have to be able to take
you
it.
have to be able to take it. You have to be able to
So.
take it. Yeah. And I feel like that's true for the most part. Like, that's why when I lost, oh my god, I got cooked after losing SPL.
Mhm.
It was a massacre. I got cooked by everyone, and I knew it was gonna happen too.
Mhm.
And it's what you subscribe to keeps it exciting.
Right, right. But I guess the overarching point to be made is I don't know. It's not hard to. I mean, sometimes people just like to talk shit. I mean, look, even when Tom Brady messes up, there are fat guys in their chairs going, he shouldn't have made that play or whatever. And I mean, they might be right, but then again, Tom Brady doesn't have to listen to those guys. But I mean, that's a stupid example because of the social media and stuff like that. But I don't know. It's hard to strike a balance, like with the whole skill thing. The answer is usually somewhere in the middle. It's basically when Solwyn has made 4 individual finals and he gets roasted by people who have never done anything. I mean, you can say things like, "Yeah, he didn't. He should have switched to Keldeo or whatever," but wow, what a garbage player. Stuff like that. I mean, it's in the middle.
To get lost, I actually had a conversation with somebody a few months ago about this, and they were like, "It's your fault that this type of stuff happens," and I was like, "No," and they were like, "Yeah, it is your videos, etc., etc." And I was like, "Okay, we can attribute part of it to me, but it's not fully me." But I did understand after that conversation how me having fun, just being like, whatever person.
Well, it's you having fun just for the hell of it, because you grew up on PO where,
I'm an entertainer. I'm an
yeah.
entertainer.
But there are some people who think they need to copy that, and they need instead of winning, yeah,
That's where they're.
instead of
That's the problem.
instead of winning games and going big that way, I guess, then it's more about getting big by putting others down.
And I also don't want to be like, yes, if you win, you can say whatever you want.
I definitely don't agree with that. Yeah.
That's not the case. That's not what we're saying. But
Yeah.
and that's not even what we do. I don't be putting people down. Like, but I'll talk my occasional shit. Like someone popping off. Like I'll be like, hey.
Well, okay, if someone else starts, then they're fair game.
Yeah, of course, of course, of course. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
even if they don't start, sometimes I like to spice it up. Like sometimes I'll pop up on Smug Tours and be like, all French are bad at SMOU. Who's gonna check me today? Like, but it's like trolling, you know? Like,
Well, that's like clearly a joke, though.
no, it's not. All French are bad at SMOU. But
By joke, I mean it's like lighthearted. It's not. I don't, there is a difference. There is a noticeable difference.
there is a noticeable difference, even though I do mean it.
There's a difference between saying I'm really good and saying Solwind is trash because he just lost another final.
Yeah, okay.
So.
100%, 100%. And the justifications are so dumb.
It's a hard line to draw, but I don't know. It's a weird line to draw, I guess, because people have different measuring sticks.
Right.
Yeah.
But
All right. Let's take it to a lighter place. Any metagame specific observations for Oris and Sun and Moon? By that I mean, what's good right now? What strategies? Not just Pokemon, but like, yeah.
strategies wise, offense is still the top strat, easily still the top strat.
In Sun and Moon.
A lot of ground type offense, a lot of offensive Landos and offensive chomps being utilized, even non-stealth rock chomps I've been seeing. It's a lot of offensive ground types. In general, offense is big. We haven't been seeing stall too much in SN, have we?
Mm-hmm.
Haven't really been seeing too much stall. Zone is still at an all-time high. Those types of offenses are very good. So yeah, in general, it's still just offense for the most part. From what I've seen, I think West has been using offense for the most part as well. You saw bulky offense from Blarg yesterday, which was a aggron bulky offense. But even that kind of stuff can work. That's more balanced, but not a lot of stall. Balance and offense are on top.
Mm-hmm. All right, and Oris? Like, do you think this epidemic of cheese that we're seeing, like the Shuckles and Zatsus, is that gonna last?
The thing is, I don't even think the cheese is good.
Well, that's the thing, yeah. Well, because I guess there's the question of if it like wins so consistently, is it even cheese? You know?
Yeah, exactly. Oris though, Oris is kind of had kind of a resurgence with the new SPL, shots to X-Ray and Trosco for really pushing.
The Azumarils and Bisharps of the world, yeah.
I was very bored of Oris even while I was playing it Yeah,
Well, because it
I
was
was
devolving
yeah.
more into like safe Clefable, Slowbro,
And
Ferrothorn.
that's all
Yeah.
I used. All I used was Clefable stuff, and I'd win. But all my games were calm mind wins. Like it's boring as hell. So it was cool that they were bringing in Bisharp, Thunderous,
Hmm.
fun stuff. I enjoyed that.
Really advancing the
Uh,
metagame. Yeah.
yeah, they proved that hyper offense was good, and that's X-ray proved that hyper offense was usable in Gen 6. That's huge.
Hmm.
X-ray really proved that, and that team is amazing. His HO is absolutely amazing.
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
Yeah.
Amazing team. So yeah, in general, even ORS is pretty spread out though. Like we
Hmm.
had that HO, so even ORS, at least now the extremes are working in ORS.
Hmm.
The stall is back. The Zapdos, Altaria, White Queen style team, and just
It seems pretty much like the Trosco stall with like the Altaria, Suicune, and Quagsire. That's the only really consistent one though, and even that can,
Magnus
you
going
know,
for the stall.
yeah. I think Altaria is Altaria, Quagsire, like all that really holds that team together. I guess Magnezone helps, but
Generally,
yeah, like all the other stall teams tend to fizzle out pretty quickly. Um, all right. So, what are name not necessarily just one or two, but however many you feel like comfortable naming your favorite tournament battles ever. So, one or two of your own and one or two from someone else.
one or two of my own. Alright, my favorite battle of myself recently is me versus Will of Fire. He brought Stall. I brought my Komodo team, and it was just cool because I had just given him $1,000 for winning my tournament, and we played, and he brought Stall, and I smoked him. Like I played one of the best games. He didn't play too hot. Like just yeah, like it wasn't like it was a decent game, but he didn't play too great. But I mean, every play I made, I had like an impossible matchup, and every single play I made off the rip was like it was just such an exciting game. Like looking back at that game, like I'm just like, damn, I was really out here. Like I can even remember just like the game I had a Komodo Sand, right? And in the beginning, he let off a Torn, and I let off a Zapdos, predicting that turn one I doubled into Komodo on his hip out on to get my rocks up, and then I doubled out again, and I close combat on the switch to Chansey. Like I was making insane plays, and they worked out, and I was just very happy because again I hate stall, and then I'm bringing my fun Komodo team, and then I was like, oh, I can't wait to upload this stall destruction tournament game. Oh, it's gonna be so fire. So that's my recent most favorite.
Mm. Can you name an all-time most favorite?
Yeah, all time most favorite. All time most favorite. What's a win that I really like? I really loved winning versus Reiku. Yeah,
That's a great one. That's a great one.
it probably is gonna be that one, man. Um, yeah, the Reiku one. The Solon one is huge too, but the Reiku one in particular is very, very big for me. Nostalgia adds to it, but yeah, that finals win was huge. That's my favorite of mine. And then favorite of somebody else's is very hard. I love a lot of players' games, man. Um, what is one that's really good? I'm trying to think. Because I don't think I can pick one. Because I like.
You don't have to pick just one.
Yeah, yeah. There are a lot of games I like, but there was that game, CBB versus Adam in 2014 SPL.
Oh, Yusuke Adam. Yusuke.
Yeah, Yusuke Adam, and he pursued the Lucario. But then Adam still played a great game, and he brought it back, and he ended up winning, and it even came down to like how much PP was left on Cal, and just that game blew my mind back in the day, because that was 5 years ago, right? And
5 years ago. Over 5 years ago.
yeah, over 5 years ago. That's a game you see today. People still ain't making plays like that for the most part. Like just booming, like double switch out the gate. Like it was awesome watching it then. There was another good game I really liked watching. Not all time, but just recently. It was John with the Hydreigon versus the dude who choked him walk around.
Oh, that was.
Lord knows how he won. I mean, obviously the dude.
You ever? I've never seen someone counter a Volcarona with Hydreigon before.
Yeah, we'll never see something like that. Like that was out of this world.
Astounding. Absolutely astounding.
I liked watching Ben Gay win with a Purple Pass versus Pasha, I think. But that's just a fun thing. And then other than that, a really big battle, like a very big one for us, for all IDM was Hugo's OST run.
Of course.
That was huge for all of us. We used to all watch that live. We were all in call when he played finals and won.
That's an aspect of Smogon I really like when the clans come together to see their friend play on the big stage.
It was IDM
Right. Like here's
Over Smogon, all
yeah.
that stuff.
Here's an example that's gonna blow your mind a little. Like when Ojama first showed up on the scene and was starting to win in Smoke and Tour, all his French buddies were popping up and going and starting, spamming the battle chat in French and
Yup,
shit.
yup.
So shit like that.
I
Or
remember when Hugo beat Megan, that's when we lost our shit. Because
yeah.
we were like, Smogon's golden.
Oh, you guys were so obnoxious.
We were like, that's your best player. Hugo sauced him. Like we were bad.
Oh yeah, I remember.
Yeah. And then he was killing all Smogon players. Heist got knocked out. Peachy got knocked out. Like he took on everybody, and it was hilarious because obviously the 001 fiasco. So it was like he shouldn't even have been there, but it was hilarious to us because he fucking cheated the system and was gonna win OST.
Yeah.
So that whole run was awesome for us. That shit was so funny. So yeah, I have big nostalgia in that. And CTC versus Lefties is another big one. I was in a chat with both of them. I was good friends with Lefties too back then because we played tag pro and stuff. And yeah, they had just big beef, and they battled. And CTC smoked them and talked so much crap.
Oh, CCC. Well, that's the thing about shit talk is that it doesn't matter if you're right or not because even if you lose, you can always just keep going.
You can always keep shit talking, and then if you win the next time, you're good.
Yeah, you're good for life. You ever see CVV shit talk? That guy will bring up shit from like almost a decade ago.
Maybe it's uncounterable. And CTC too. Those two are the
I mean, look, anyone is uncounterable if you remove logic from the equation. So
two. Those two are crazy.
think about it like if you're building a team that decides if you're like skimping on certain threats existing in the metagame. Like I remember you once said some guy countered Heatran or Bisharp with Heatran. And like it's really easy to make the best teams ever if you pretend some of the Pokemon don't exist,
Yeah.
So that's the same kind of principle in a different way. All right, so what is the most infuriating tournament game you've ever played and why? It just made your blood boil.
Most infuriating. Made my blood boil.
Made you want to chuck your laptop out the goddamn window.
Yeah, there are some ones. Alright, it won't be it's not a game, but it's a week of games.
Sure.
2017, I played Finchinator, CL, and Floppy, and all of them stalled me like every game.
Yeah? Yeah.
Finch, he got lucky, could have played better, but he hacked me. I made a goal play too, but I still lost. That just made me so mad because I was like, oh my god, of course he brought stall. I just brought mobile offense or whatever. Whatever, I didn't care. But yeah, he beat me. I was mad, lost to stall, whatever. Next, played CL, beat him the first game, offense versus offense. Then he brings stall the next two games, or like chancy shit. I don't know if it was full stall. But yeah, I lose those two. I'm mad at myself for losing, but I'm also, again, the whole situation is obnoxious, right? We played offense versus offense, I win. So in my head, I'm like, this is pure Pokemon. I outplayed him, I won. And then he outstalls me and beats me the next two games. Even though in game 2 he did play better. But in game 3, it's the perf 100-0 full stall matchup. For me to stabilize that, those chances, I'd take that out.
Would you say that stall like this is a problem in the newer gens because it's less all-encompassing and it's harder to make teams that cover both stall and the rest of the offensive metagame?
I mean, I don't know. I just didn't like the metagame at that point. The stall was really good at that time too, man. Really good. And I mean, credits to my opponents, right? It was quite obvious at that time that I would lose to stall, but people wouldn't really stall me. And offense versus offense, I was known to usually win. So people were bringing these fat ass teams, and it worked out. And I have to hold that up. So that whole week, I was so mad. The Floppy loss was the most infuriating because I think Floppy's bad, and he stalled me, and he played bad, but he won off virtue of matchup, and then he hacked me in the last game when it was offense versus offense, and I was dancing on him, and he hacked me, and I was so outraged after that, and I was like, I cannot do it with this shit no more. And I'm so mad. It was OLT and Snake, two tournaments I don't even like playing, and it was the peak of my trophy chasing. So that whole environment and time period, I hated the game so much. So yeah, that whole week of those 3 series, awful.
All right. Name an instance of a set you saw someone else use and had an instant eureka moment about how genius it was. Like, oh my god, I got to use this. This is amazing. Or I guess it could be a team too that you were just really inspired by and just immediately knew you had to try out. But ideally set or Pokemon.
Yes. Okay. So what really impressed me? I mean, CTC for the most part, is the number one for me for that. I mean, the reason I use all those Komodo teams is because he has a hidden alt on the ladder, and he will show me his replays, and I'll be like, this is genius. And so CTC is the number one for me for that. But from a specific game, I can remember where I saw a team, and I was like, whoa, I need to have that one. Because there will be games like that. I'll see it, and I'll be like, yeah, I need that one. Like, that was great. I need that one. So, what one really... my boy Mimolet, he made a team last year. It was Cephalon, Crawdon, Lopunny. And that team completely turned me on to Lopunny, which I think is one of the best ones in SM. Maybe now it's a little bit worse because Clef and stuff is starting to slowly kind of rise, but that team put me on to Lopunny, and I thought it was really, really good. So just seeing him get number one on the ladder and build that team really inspired me to use Blacephalon and Lopunny. Really opened me up to those two Pokemon as offensive threats. So those are two for sure. Like, that was like genius to me because I never used those up until then. And then I was like, these are amazing. Other than that, Bengaze put me onto a couple of offensive Pokemon. I forgot when I saw it, but CTC beat somebody down with Salazzle, Toxic plus Suicune sub Calm Mind, and that was really good too. So, and then I saw someone very closely after that win with sub CM Suicune. So I had started using it for a little bit then too. Around that time, I think it was like 2017, 18. But yeah, those are some.
Good, good. All right, this might be fun. Dumbest set you've ever seen work. Why did it work? How did it work? When did it happen? Just the stupidest shit.
All the garbage ABR uses. You know what he used recently the last time we played?
What?
Switch, Lowest, Thunderwave, Pain Split, Rotom Wash.
Oh, right, the Hydroless one, yeah.
No pump. So I let off on my Lander's T, which was knock off Pasho to lure Rotom. I knock off turn 1, he goes for Volt Switch. I rocks the next turn, he goes for Volt Switch. In my head, I'm like, oh, I'm so fire. Motherfucker doesn't even have Hydro Pump. So, yeah, ABR sets are so...
Right, but that one didn't really work as intended, though.
Oh, sorry, you said work as intended.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess he won the game. Right. But yeah, it didn't work.
But not by virtue of that Rotom, though.
BKC, what about Scarf Ice Beam Latios, BKC?
Oh, that was a classic, of course.
Oh, Scarf Ice Beam Latios, that's huge.
That was pretty stupid.
That was pretty stupid.
Yeah.
It only hits Altaria.
Oh, did it kill Altaria? I thought it killed like a Scarflando or something.
It killed the Torn, and then it killed the Altaria after. It was like the only one.
Oh, that's astounding.
What's a stupid set that I saw that worked? Oh, not stupid. Maybe it's. But the Z Ground Mew. Remember that?
No.
Who used it versus ABR? It worked, but I thought it was such a weird tech.
That's really weird.
Z Ground Mew to beat to Oko, Magirna, Mawile, type stuff, I guess. Yeah, Z Earth Power or Z Earthquake, I don't remember. Either way, yeah, that was a pretty weird tech. As for a weird tech that beat me, or like a bad, Amir brought a Beedrill versus me and beat me like 4 years ago in a tournament, and I was mad. I was like, Beedrill is so bad, but he spoke me with it, so I had to hold that.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Here are anything else you wanted to mention, or?
Nah, those are about it.
All right. What are your biggest tournament regrets?
Tournament risks.
No, regrets. Like, which tournaments do you regret not doing better in, specifically?
SPL 10. That's the biggest regret.
Mm-hmm.
SPL 10 finals. Yeah, probably. I mean, that's fresh on my mind, right? So that's a big one. Well, not fresh, but it's the freshest.
Right.
Yeah. I don't really regret the team. Well, I don't really regret the teams I picked, but I think I could have not gotten as lazy. If you look at my SPL, like if you look through what I used, the last 5 weeks of SPL, I used Weather all 5 times. So you can see where I got lazy thinking, oh, this is just good and I like using it. So, yeah, I used Sand 3 times and I used Rain twice. So, in my last 5 weeks. So I got kind of lazy. So yeah, I could have just been smarter about the prep. I knew that SM was a metagame where I could bring anything and win with, and for some reason I just decided to reject that and bring what I knew was good instead of what had worked for me. Not to say that I brought a bad team, because I didn't, but I remember even in the semifinals, CTC was like, don't use Manaphy, that shit is ass. But I used it and it didn't pan out the way I did. So, I don't really have too many regrets. I mean, my playing, the game versus Blacks, I didn't really misplay, I just lost. There are plays that it could be better, right, but there was no throw. Empo I threw because Empo I was beating his ass for the first 10 minutes, and then I threw it on one turn. So that was a truly a choke. So I have to hold that. But yeah, just could have been more prepared for the finals. It just didn't make sense to me in my head because going in, like, there was just no reason for me to throw, right? Because I had the tournament of my life. Came off a destruction semis. I smoked Charlie. So I was like, oh, it's gonna be a wrap. And I like Empo. I wanted to play him. Like, that's one of my buttons. So I didn't mind like losing to him or anything, but it still sucks to lose. So yeah, probably regret that. And then just the SPL as a whole in finals, I think I could have done more. My team lost pretty tragically. We were up 6-3 and then lost 5 straight to lose the tournament. So I just felt like there were things I could have maybe done myself better. But I was also in a very tough place. IRL, like I had a lot of stress at that time as well. Like I was super stressed. Like some really crazy stuff was going on around that March-April period. So that also happens. But that I really wish we won SPL, obviously. Just because it would have been great for me to win with all the guys, best season, blah blah blah. But it happens. That's the biggest regret, though. Yeah, no other tournament. Because look, I wanted to win Smoke on Tour, but I won it, so I don't really regret losing the other ones.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Would you say the first OST was a big one?
I didn't deserve to win the first OST, so I don't think that the first OST. I only used CTC's teams. Like obviously there was the whole style thing, etc., etc. I had a lot of help. And in general, like I don't know. In general, like yeah, it would have been awesome to win. I was obviously sad when I lost, but looking back, I don't even think like it's not like it was like I deserved to win that I should have won that type of thing. I don't see it as that. That's just how I see it. So it sucks to lose, but it's not something I'm like, oh man. And who knows how my career would have changed had I won that? Because it would have been like me winning very early on in my career.
Right,
I would have been tasting victory very early at a medium to decent level, as opposed to 3.5 years later when I was truly one of the best when I won. If I won that OST, it was just like, okay.
You might have gotten cocky and just not been as hungry to get better.
Even just me winning it, it wasn't like, oh, one of the best performing players did it. It was just like, right, it worked. I mean, you won, right? So,
Yeah, just kind of happened. All right.
just kinda happened.
Do you have any hopes for Sword and Shield competitively? I'm talking like special intimidate, physical assault vests. Wait, you'll like this one.
Gigantamax looks broken. Bro.
You'll like this one. Regen nerf to 25%.
Yes, that is the 100% what we need. Remove regens 33%, make it 25% or 20% or whatever. Yeah, something like that.
God, I love regen.
Somebody had an idea, which is too complicated, I think, to put in, but it was like punish regen if they keep switching in and out between regeners, make them recover more the longer they're out of the battle, which is interesting but hard to calculate.
That's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, it's a cool thought though.
All right.
But yeah, just new Pokemon. I'm sad that they removed Megas because I love Megas. Just give us good offensive Pokemon. I know that all the Pokemon are coming back, so they better give us some amazing Pokemon in the new generation. That's the big one for me.
It's gonna be a weird, really like closed-in metagame. Like, have you ever played a Advanced 200?
My bad, I just disconnected.
Have you ever played a 200 in Advance?
No, what is that?
It's when Ruby and Sapphire came out, there was no Emerald, there was no Coliseum, there was no XD, there was no Fire Red and Leaf Green. So it was called 200 because only 200 of the 386 Pokemon that actually existed were available. So you had no Tyranitar, no Aerodactyl, stuff like that, Charizard and stuff. So the metagame is like really small. It's basically like mostly Hoenn stuff, Skarmory, Magneton, Heracross, and like mostly Hoenn stuff. And it's pretty cool actually. And I'm wondering what it's going to be like, because do we know how many Pokemon we're getting yet?
They said we're going to have over 1,000, so I think it's like close to 100.
That's got to be like, wait, I mean total in the game.
Well, yeah, not in the game, but in general.
No, like overall 1,000, that makes sense. Oh, wait, because we're at like 850 something, so it's got to be well over 100 actually.
No, but he was saying full forms included, so I think it's closer to like 90 to 100.
Okay. That makes sense, I guess. And I mean, like, do we know how many non-new Pokemon are going to be included in the game yet?
No, we don't know that. But yeah, I have high hopes for it, bro. I mean, I'm gonna be covering it anyway. I'm gonna be playing it regardless.
Of course.
Competitively, I hope it's good. I always find that the beginning of a generation is kind of whack competitively.
Well, the one that's interesting here is that if nothing changes, then the beginning of the generation, I mean, it's going to be different as people figure out what's good, but nothing's going to change. Like in Sun and Moon, there were no megas, and then they released more and more megas until they were all available, and each like mega being released was like a new part of the metagame. Or like in Gen 6 when they released stuff like Diancie and Volcanion, and so I mean, maybe we'll get like an event Pokemon or something, but it's less. It's gonna be weird that this gen isn't going to really change. I mean, maybe we'll get a third game or something, but I don't see the national decks coming back at this point since they've responded to the backlash and they're basically like, we hear what you're saying, but go fuck yourselves. So, all right, let's finish these off. Two more. Who do you look up to most as a player and or person? So even if some guy sucks, if he's the nicest guy ever in the face of smoke and vitriol, then that's to be admired. And which players are you closest friends with? Although I guess these questions might be a little redundant at this point.
Yeah, I know what you mean. So, the greatest team builder ever, in my opinion, is CTC. So that I'll put. I mean, you can't really quantify it because obviously there are players that can build in every tier. CTC will only build in only in 7 nowadays. But over the years of me playing Pokemon, that's the person I've used the most teams of. So CTC for me is my favorite builder ever. I have the most respect for him as team builder, and just in general, he has had a lot of effects on the metagames in their current time, especially the XY when that was truly his tier.
Early on, yeah.
It was truly his. So again, Hugo too. But me and Hugo did not have the player relationship that I had with CTC. Hugo was just my good ass friend, which is cool, but we didn't play too much and anything like that. I played a ton with CTC and build. Like he would give me teams and stuff. So those two are up there. As for guys I've met on Smogon, I mean you're obviously up there, but I met you before Smogon. I've known you as long as I've known like CTC and them. So you're up there. ABR is up there as well. Amazing builder, amazing player, one of my best friends. All the guys, CDB, etc. Have a lot of respect for Megan. I have been friends with, but I became better friends with after 2017. And I really like his attitude towards Pokemon. He's like a joker. He loves having fun. But
that's putting it mildly.
Joker,
yeah.
Even though he's a joker, he is one of the best players of all time, and I love that. I think it's great. Special shout out to Ojama, one of my best friends on Pokemon 2. I haven't really talked to him too much lately, but over the years, one of my best friends, best supporters. I've played a ton with him. Polek as well. Like my bro, I've prepped a ton with him. It's like too many people to name, but I mean you know him.
Yeah.
I like to run around with.
Yeah.
I just got a lot of love for the players I play with, right?
Yep. All right. Last question. Are there any old players who you wish would come back, just to shoot the shit, if not play?
Wait, players that I want to return?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I want Hugo to return. I want Godmarth to return. I want Ollie to return. Ollie props to all my buddies. I'd like Sweepage to return because I want to see what that would bring. We're in an interesting arc where CDB now plays in tournaments, so we'll see what happens with that. And other old faces I'd like to see return. I mean, I guess like a really old face would be crazy, like a dude from before 2010. Like if he came back and started putting in work, I think it's crazy that Aristoros is playing the way he is, considering he last played in 2012. And he's not too bad. The game versus Conflict, he played great. Got the shorter end of the stick, but yeah. So again, like I only really started on Smogon in 2014, so I only really know old players or the guys I hung out with in IDM. But yeah, it would be cool if Tasum came back. One of my good buddies and one of the best players ever.
All right.
But he's past it now. But yeah, that's about it.
All right. All right. Well, thank you for being on the show, and we're gonna call it there because we're coming up on 2.5 hours. So.
This is going deep with Blunder. Going under with Blunder.
You ever see that? You ever see that show, Going Deep, with all the porn stars?
Yo, Kasim G.
Kasim G is awesome, dude.
I was watching that literally right before you called me.
No way.
I was thinking, call this Going Deep. I swear to God.
Should I call it Going Deep with Blunder?
Dude, that's what I was thinking. You should name it that.
All right, Going Deep with Blunder it is.
That shit was hilarious.
All right, we're gonna call it there. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed all 2.5 hours in one sitting, and yeah, we'll catch you next time.